Stephen Mule, MP Matungulu.
Didoraso Saku.
Abdishurie Balambala.
Mishimboko Likoni.
Rehab Mukami, Nyeri.
Ndamkale Bamisa Boti.
Honorable Mr. Davis Chirchir, we'll start in earnest with the job ahead of us. First, you'll be sworn in because you'll testify on oath. Once we do that, you give your original documents to the sergeant to give to the clerk to cross-check with what we have to see if they are corresponding. So you may be upstanding. You have an option to swear on the Bible or the Quran, depending on your faith. Bible?
I, Davis Kimutai Chirchir, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee on the matter under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Thank you.
You may take your seats and sign the oath. Yes, Mr. Chirchir, for purpose of these proceedings, many members will be referring to you as nominee because that's what you are. I'll invite you to give us a brief introduction of yourself, your name, educational background, working experience, key competences that make you think and feel suitable for the appointment to cabinet. 5 minutes at the very most.
Thank you again, Chairman, Speaker, and honorable members. Nice to be here, and my initial gratitude to the President for nominating me to this position of Cabinet Secretary, Roads and Transport. Mr. Chairman, let me fast forward. I graduated in the year 1985 with a degree in physics and computer science from the University of Nairobi, and thereafter went into telecommunication industry, where I joined Kenya Post and Telecommunications and worked as a teletraffic engineer after a 9-month course at the then Central Training School, where I learned the intricacy of managing traffics going into the various routes across the whole world, dimensioning, congestion, and things like that. Subsequently, I did rise in that position to the level of general manager, where I managed the ICT, Information, Communication, and Technology. And in the nascent period of liberalization, I managed the divestiture and liberalization of telecommunication as a change manager, where we did at that time the communication authorities, laws and regulations that spinned off what is now the Communication Authority, which is the regulator in the telecoms industry, spinned off Postal Corporation and Telecoms Kenya, and issued the various licenses to Safaricom and Celtel at that time. Something that then catapulted the growth of telecommunication in what became competitive and very competitive from the monopolistic management of telecommunication at that time done by Kenya Post and Telecommunications. I later on moved on, honorable members, chairman, as commissioner, where I worked in the interim Electoral Commission, soon after the challenge that this country faced during the post-election, I came in as one of the electoral commissioners where I spearheaded various reforms, processes that built confidence that had been totally destroyed in the electoral process, and where Kenyans at that time did not believe in exercising their democratic right through the vote or the ballot. We built system at one time, Chairman, honorable members, the Electoral Commission at that time was the most trusted organization in Kenya, ahead of the media and of course ahead of Parliament at that time. Honorable members, after the term of reform, which also catapulted the promulgation of the new constitution where we ran the referendum in the year 2010, we were part of crafting Chapter 7 of the constitution, which today really brings out the electoral process, management of the credibility of the vote, to the extent that when the ballots are counted at the polling station and transmitted to the central tallying center, it doesn't matter what you do at the central tallying center because the results would have been announced in each and every of the 22,000 plus polling centers in the country with the technology that pushes them to the cloud today, and everybody participates in the counting. Even when we've had the results we had in 2 years where the difference between the winning party and the losing party was 60,000, we were able to come out of the electoral process with acceptance of those electoral results. In the year 2012, I had a stint of going close to politics when I became the Secretary General of the then party URP, where we worked with a number of leadership to form government, and I then thereafter was nominated and subsequently appointed to the position of Cabinet Secretary, Energy and Petroleum, a role I did work on for 2 years before a list of shame was placed to Parliament, and I was one of them, and of course several members of Parliament, and we went through the due process and we got out of it over time, but not before some of our careers were unnecessarily tainted because of the procedure that was adopted at that time. Honorable members, I have walked the journey, and I come here today, rather 2022 again. I was nominated and appointed after the Kenya Kwanza won to this position that I've been nominated to. I was nominated to the position of Cabinet Secretary, Energy and Petroleum, and I did serve in that position until the 11th of July when the entire cabinet was dismissed. Honorable members, I have done some significant work in my career, in my journey, in terms of creating and adding value to this economy, in building systems, and I have legacies which I do pride of today. And today I stand before you, I sit before you as a nominee for CS, roads, and transport. Let me leave it at that for now, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, that will do. I will now invite members to file questions to you, starting with the Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Allow me to question Mr. Davis Chirchir, the nominee, on where he served before, his immediate former position as Minister of Energy, and also to question him on where he's going, which is the Ministry of Transport. So, Mr. Chirchir, you are at the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum. You know very well that one of the biggest complaints Kenyans had was that the cost of energy, that is petroleum products and power, was extremely high. I think then we'd be interested in knowing what are some of the interventions that you made during your tenure to try and mitigate this. Then where you're going now to the Ministry of Transport, where two things that are really big that are being spoken about in that particular ministry. One is that is the cost of building our roads. I know that before the finance bill collapsed, the discussions were that to do the entire road network, almost ₦1 trillion is required or more. And then also there's a lot of unpaid bills. That's some of the issues that were brought before Parliament for contractors who have built our roads. So what are the interventions you will take if you're confirmed for this position of Minister of Transport? Are you going to look at joint concession roads and so on? And lastly, on the big elephant in the room, Kenya Airways. Now that you're going to the Ministry of Transport, if confirmed, that will be also an issue you'll deal with. Kenyans would like to know how you intend to deal with Kenya Airways. Are we going to put more money and seeing losses, or is there a way of dealing with it, or should it just be sold? We are interested in knowing what your views are on that. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Nominee, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker Gladys Boshole. Good question on what we've done and achieved as a country to bring down the cost of energy to where it is today. Let me start, Honorable Chair, by saying when I checked last, and then because of the concern when our President was going to the space to talk to the agencies, I did check the challenge of power and what we need to do to be able to address the cost of doing business in this economy. Cost of energy is one of the most insignificant contributor to the cost of doing business. In industry, the cost of energy in production contributes to up to 30 to 40%. And therefore, a country cannot be competitive if the cost of energy as a unit cost of production is significantly high. Chairman, honorable members, the energy portfolio is a very interesting area when I consider to where I'm going. A very structured area. We have a tool we call Least Cost Power Development Plan, which we've just signed off the 2024-2043 Least Cost Power Development Plan, which articulates the building blocks and how to match demand and supply. What happens, Honorable Chair and members, is that every bit and piece of energy that is generated is paid for by the customers, whether we sell it or not. So we don't generate power which you don't need. We have to ensure that we match the demand and the supply. And because the demand side can grow suddenly while the supply is built over 3 years, there's got to be very good planning. As we speak now, we are planning for power for Kenya for 2027, 28. In fact, those are the power plants which we are currently building in Olkaria, in Kiambere, Kamburu, Sola, and so on and so forth. In Meningai, in Nakuru, we are currently building power plants. And what we did to basically get down to the question to address the cost of energy is to really ensure that the energy mix in generation, we do generate power from solar, from wind, from geothermal. Those are the three cheapest cost of generation, including, of course, hydro. And the most expensive generation is from thermal. And during times of drought, we run thermal more because the hydrology would be low. Because of the hydrology having been good in the past 1 year, we've had a lot of water, so we are running our Kiambere, Kindaruma, Gitaru, Cascade fairly well. But more importantly, the mix to ensure that we do not dispatch the expensive power when we don't need to is a very important component in managing the cost of power. One of the profound things we've done, Chairman and honorable members, which I might even call legacy, is switching off a power plant called Moroni, which is very expensive. It dispatches power at about 70 shillings per kilowatt hour. So Moroni GT, which is somewhere between Kisumu and Moroni. We all know where Moroni is. We have also switched off a power plant called Kipevu 1. Moroni generates 60 megawatts. Kipevu 1 generates 74 megawatts. At end of life, it has reached end of life, and we switched it off. And likewise, we've switched off 76.4 megawatts in Kipevu 2. These power plants alone, Chair, if to contextualize, it generates 210 megawatts, dispatches about 15% because it's only used for picking, but the cost to the economy is about 10 billion Kenya shillings annually, when it is dispatching at 15%. If we have to dispatch more because of not obeying the order of merit of economic order of merit of supply, the bill would go from 10, 15 to 20 billion. Those power plants are down. The promoters of these power plants have been through this town to see everybody to try and bring them back. But because of the cost of doing business, it doesn't make sense to give them another lease of life. The challenge of climate change commitment, which we have made for 2030 to be 100% green, is another one which has catapulted this country and placed it in a very, very good pedestal. So, Chair, let me end that initial question by saying it will be of interest for members when you write the report to check and confirm that in the month of July, both cost of electricity and cost of petroleum products is the lowest in the country in the last 15 months. And it takes a real difficult position to sustain those power plants not to be switched off, not to be switched on again because of what I've said, the cost of doing business and the climate change commitment which we've made for this country. As regarding some of the things that I will do where I'm going in the roads and transport, Honorable Chairman, honorable members, it's an interesting area. It will be interesting to note that where I come from in energy, or where I've served twice before, if we have one pending bill, it is due to a court case. We don't have any pending bills. I have quickly checked the road sector with a pending bills of about 166 billion, with unfunded commitments of about 1 trillion, some with the Chinese government and some with the local contractors, unfunded. And I don't know, I've also checked, Honorable Chairman, that the exchequer support that goes to roads annually is about 55 billion. So if that continues, it will take us in excess of 20 years to finance what has been committed today, leave alone financing the pending bills, which sits at 94 billion with an interest, forex gains and what have you of adding up to about 166. And therefore there is a job to be done, Chairman, members, and I think we'll have to work together given the challenge that we have a finance bill that has not gone through. Luckily, where I come again, maybe to give a bit of hope to where I'm going to, is that all energy works is off balance sheet. And it will be of interest to members and, of course, the Honorable Chairman to note that energy deals with a budget of about $10 billion annually, all off balance sheet. And I sit here to basically pronounce that we are working to deliver the cheapest cost of electricity and today the cheapest cost of petroleum products in the country, albeit with no budget support, because all this is private capital, off balance sheet. We do not have to work on the treasury balance sheet. Otherwise, we'll need 20 years, Chairman, to be able to fulfill those commitments that we have signed onto and that we have to deliver because they are contractual. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman.
Chairman, if you allow me.
Yes.
If you allow me,
Yes,
just to follow up on what Davis is talking about, 1 trillion into commitment of 160 billion in debt. It looks really grim, you know, like you'll run away from the job. What is it that you will do to attract capital and actually to offset the 1 trillion and also to pay the bills? Because you have done it in energy. What will you do? Because we want to see hope. Kenyans want to see what is it that Davis will do to change the story. Thank you.
Yes, Davis, and you had not also touched on Kenya Airways question?
Through Chairman Owen, it is difficult. It's early in the day after nomination, but I think it's possible. I've said we work off balance sheet in energy. And when you, Chairman, you have term sheets which stipulate that maybe the cost of constructing a kilometer of road or the cost of generating geothermal, if you are coming in as a private investor, should not be indicative tariffs. We gazette indicative tariffs through EPRA, where when you're generating power, we tell you if you're coming in, we're not signing if your tariff is above 6 cents US. So I think we should really be looking at frameworks like if you are coming in, we cannot sign a contract if you are building a road beyond 100 million Kenya shillings per kilometer, so that we don't get into commitments of trying to build a road for 500 million Kenya shillings per kilometer. And so even as you walk in to do your initial study, you don't spend time to push us to a commitment where we are building a kilometer for the price of 5, 6, 10 kilometers. We will need to look at, more importantly, how to work off balance sheet. When I said $10 billion, it sounds crazy. But petroleum alone, which comes into Kenya today through the OTS or the current G2G at about 740,000 metric tons annually, cost the economy some 6 trillion, crazy numbers. I mean, I just need to refer, 6 billion US dollars annually. And we do not have a time when the country is dry. Even at the peak time of the tightened monetary policy, when the Fed went into 5.5% interest and the interbank rates were crazy and there were no dollars in the industry, we did not run dry because we do not have to rely on the treasury to help us to bring these necessary products to drive the economy. So we'll be looking together, honorable members, at how to resolve this challenge. It's a big challenge. Raising a trillion Kenya shillings to build those kilometers of roads where commitment has been given. Having to pay the 160, 170 billion Kenya shillings on bending bills and growing by the hour, growing by the day, is something that we can look at what you would call securitization of the little money we have in the road maintenance levy, and borrowing a bullet today and paying with an interest over 10 years, and we should be able to finance. As to whether those are acceptable, being in an IMF program today is something that we'll need to sit down together and resolve, because it's a commitment this country has made. We'll have to address it. Thank you.
Point of information, Speaker. Small point of information.
Yes,
This might be beneficial to the nominee, and I think I agree with him. The proposal of getting resources securitized by our instruments, which is, for example, fuel levy. In last Parliament, when I was chairing transport, Honorable Speaker, we actually proposed, and we have actually a legal instrument. We have the law, so which means the nominee might want to exploit that opportunity, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, the Deputy Speaker is saying you have not touched on her question on Kenya Airways.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. Kenya Airways is another interesting investment, which you do know that we all love to have our Kenya Airways, and I think we should continue to have it and promote it. Kenya Airways, as we speak, and for the short time I've been preparing to appear before you, I do see Kenya Airways running a system that needs a lot of support, and where the Kenya government, I think to date, has given support to the tune of 600 billion Kenya shillings to be able to stay afloat, given the negative negative cash capital that they are operating in. Chair, I think the reforms at Kenya Airways, starting from the needs a lot of communication and ownership by the employees of Kenya Airways, and we're going to sit down and get them to understand that it's a problem that must be sorted out internally. The CBA, or the negotiated terms, and holding on to them when somebody else is having to pay your bill, is something that we'll really need to sit down as an enterprise, as Kenya Airways, and address. I've also seen Kenya Airways having a portfolio of flights that may not be suitable in the Embraer, which do not have the kind of bottom belly to carry the kind of luggage. And therefore, the first option when you're flying out or flying in, because of the way we carry 20, 30, 40 kilos, is not to fly Kenya Airways. So it is self-defeating to be having the highest fleet of about 13 Embraers aeroplanes in this fleet, and therefore giving us an uncompetitive advantage in terms of customers having to choose alternative flights when they might have actually wanted to fly Kenya Airways. Chairman, I do note that Kenya Airways in the past 2023 accounts had an operating profit of about 10 billion. We'll need to look at what they are doing right and build on that. Possibly take out some cost out of the system, because there are costs which we really must remove to be able to allow them to come out of the challenge they currently face. But more importantly, if you look at the 600 billion government support in Kenya Airways, and the fact that Kenya Airways today, the Kenya government owns about 49%, 48.9% of Kenya Airways, it will be, if we really kind of allowed government to pick more shares out of that 600 billion, government will go to a shareholding structure of about 80%. I think we need to bring in a partner. If you see successful hotels, allow me to use hotels, Chair, where they build networks around the world to be able to push their customers into their networks, we need to build a network of a supporting airline that we can leverage on to be able to bring Kenya Airways out of the current challenge they face, but more importantly, to support tourism, support our flower industry, support our green produce in avocado, the things we export because of the perishability very quickly into the external markets, and where the inflows in foreign currency is so significant. So we need to work on Kenya Airways. Thank you, Chair.
That will do. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable CS nominee, we just start maybe from where you stopped on Kenya Airways and ask you, we have listened to such stories. I think I've listened to those stories about KQ since I joined Parliament 12 years ago. I just want to be direct. Are we going to listen to that story from the next nominee after you? Or how long should you be approved? Will you commit to the people of Kenya that you can be able to sort out the problems of Kenya Airways? Because as you say, it's true, they are on operating profit, but when you factor in their financing costs, then they make huge losses. And then the story goes on and on and on and on forever. So you may need to tell us whether you truly mean business. Should you be approved, and how long it will take us to see a Kenya Airways that is truly functional, profitable, and is giving value to the people of Kenya. Because even nationalizing it, if you do not give value to the people of Kenya, then it may not make sense. That being so,
you have been Cabinet Secretary for Energy, and you were at the time we did the famous G2G in the oil industry. You tell us how beneficial that G2G was. Was it beneficial to the country, or was it on net terms a loss to us in terms of the oil prices and all the other issues that Kenyans raise about the G2G? And more so in view of the current conversation. You've seen Kenyans online saying that the airport has been sold. Far from it from what we hear. And negotiations on PPP framework with the Adani Airport Holdings Limited. Are you the man to run this PPP with Adani or any other interested private equity partner that may come in? And can the people of Kenya trust that you will do it for value, for good value to the people of Kenya, if G2G was not of value to the people of Kenya? I say if, because to be consequential to your first answer on G2G on oil. And maybe you would take a bit of time to tell us what you have been able to dig in your briefs from the ministry. I'm certain you've gotten briefs from the ministry on this Adani Airports Holdings PPP engagements, the engagements that are there. Lastly, just to add to what Honorable Kosing was saying, yes, the framework is there for leveraging on the RMLF funds on roads, but as you rightly say, with the programs that we are on and our debt ceiling, that may not be an option, a viable option for now, so you may need to really think out of the box in terms of funding our roads projects. Thank you.
Davis, try and compress the answers.
Thank you, Chair. I think KQ is, it needs, like I said, there'll be quick wins. There'll be the low-hanging fruits, like I said. I would like to sit down with the staffers and address this challenge in KQ, which I could easily call the low-hanging fruits, but which has really been a major pain in KQ, the industrial relations. We need to have ownership of the entire management and staff of KQ to understand the challenge and that we need to get out of it, because somebody else cannot be paying for our lunch and we just have the lunch. Those are some of the quick wins. Some of the more difficult things which I think have been addressed are those expensive leases, on the 7 leases, where the costs and the revenues are real challenge. And again, we are having to rely on government to pay on behalf. But as it were, KQ, like we'll all have to agree, from an aviation perspective, is a very strategic asset. So it will be one thing to sit down and first things first. What are the low-hanging fruits? What do we need to address? And what kind of ownership? So it's a leadership issue. We really need to address that. One thing which I'm going to put alongside KQ, G2G, and Adani, and I did prepare the challenge that the country faced in the last 4 weeks in terms of how we work, is the aspect of communication and carrying the Kenyans together with us. Article 35 of the Constitution, and I did make a record of that so that I don't fumble around, where every citizen has the right to information. And in Article 69, it talks to public participation in the environment. In 118, it talks to public participation in facilitating public participation in involvement and in the legislative process, public participation in the National Assembly and in the county government in Article 196. And in the finance area, Chapter 12, it talks about there shall be openness and accountability, including participation in financial matters. Chair, I think as government, we feel like information can only be given out when we have been pushed to give information. The public participation is articulated in the Constitution and in the act that has been in Parliament to basically actualize how public participation should be conducted, and which is causing a pain today, including the ruling that we just had the previous day. is something that we need to carry Kenyans as we do some of the things we do, like in Adani, in Kenya Airways, or in G2G. Because G2G was a fairly complex and a quick solution required to address the challenge of the time. But we're trying to explain today, even to members of parliament, to understand something that was built over a period of 4 months. If we carried everybody along in public participation so that they understand every step as we go forward, we wouldn't be facing the kind of challenges we are facing today. So there'll be need to inculcate public participation from inception as we carry the programs forward, so that we are together with Kenyans at every stage. Of course, how that is done is something that we'll need to really work on. So really, I think we really need to address the challenge that we find ourselves doing what we believe is right for the country, but the population do not quite understand because we did not carry them along the whole journey. The G2G story, Honorable Kimani Chungwa, through the chair, I think was a great success for this country. At a time when we came out of COVID, at a time when the Ukraine war was a big challenge, and the inflation rate was soaring at a high of 9%, including in the US and Canada. A very tight monetary policy running even today at 5.25% to 5.5%. And the dollars would rather be in soft trading as opposed to trading with risk. Everybody was basically earning more money, taking their money to the bank. And a situation which did not only affect Kenya, in fact in the tea industry, we were not selling our tea because there was no dollars out there. It was a global crisis. Let me then answer the point.
Avoid the temptation to give a lecture.
Yeah.
Answer questions.
Agreed. Yes. The G2G chair was brought in to forestall the challenge of unavailability of the US dollars in the industry. And we did build a very quick solution to ensure that the country would not run dry. We could be able to purchase petroleum, pay Kenya shillings, on a deferred LCs, which would be confirmed by international AAA or what you would call investment grade banks over the local issued LCs, and be able to get the product and pay later when the situation improves. It has worked very well. I think we have today brought in over 100 cargoes. We have in-account dollars in excess of $3 billion over this. And I think today, if not for G2G, like when we went to elections, Chair, in April, May 2022, MPs will recall carrying jerry cans around the country looking for fuel to run their campaigns because there were no dollars to buy petroleum products. As regarding Adani, so G2G was great. I think it is something, Chair, when there is time and I write my book, it will be one of my legacy delivery to this country. Adani.
You know, you are being guided by the chair to avoid giving lectures, because the straight answer was the dollar was at 160 something.
And
part of the benefits of that is
at 130 today. Thank you.
130 today.
Thank you.
Fuel prices, the prices were trading at then, and what they would have gone
with respect to Adani, Chair, we look at Adani. We'll need, like I opened by saying, public participation, provide information, have a framework in terms of what you would call term sheets, in terms of what is the correct return on investment when we are bringing a PPP. If we agree that the return on investment is 12 to 15% internal rate of return, if we agree on the debt equity ratio, we should be able to really get Kenyans to understand, get everybody to understand, is Adani a deal we should do? Is it going to help Kenya? Vis-a-vis what I just said, this is an off-balance sheet upgrade of Kenya Airports Authority. If we can't do it as a government, can we allow a private sector player to do it on reasonable but competitive cost or return on capital? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to start by saying that and telling the nominee that I think, Mr. Nominee, the issue now that at hand that you need to explain to the vetting committee is that you are getting into a ministry that has a very high, huge pending bill that has no money essential for development of new roads. You need to tell us how you are going to turn around that. What vision, what do you think you will do that will turn around that? That's number one. And number two, in November 2023, no, I mean in 25th of August 2023, during your tenure as Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum, the country experienced a national grid failure, you remember? And it affected many places, including the airport, including homes, hospitals, everywhere. And the then Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport took some decisions and reshuffled people at the airport and sacked some people. But on your side, nothing happened. What could be the reason, and what could have caused the disruption, or what could have caused the grid to collapse? And another thing I wanted to ask you is, you know, we are formed a new cabinet. We are vetting 22 members of parliament, members of the cabinet. And this is a broad-based government, as has been said by the president himself. But the effect of broad-based also is to have development in every part of the country. This country has suffered enough in the sense that there's skewed way of doing road constructions in the country. There are places like my neighbor here in Kikuyu, there is no road remaining, unless now we want to put overhead and overpasses and underground passes. And there are places where still there are issues of roads. What criteria will you come up with?
Mr. Speaker, you need to protect me from my colleague. He can't say there are no roads remaining in Kikuyu when there are actually no roads in Kikuyu.
You will be protected.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ask your question.
Mr. Speaker, so I was asking, what criteria are you going to come up with so that roads net distribution is done in an equitable and fair manner? Lastly, there was a road that was supposed to be dualed from, I don't know, here, Kabete or somewhere in Nairobi here, all the way to Rironi, all the way to Mount Summit Junction. And that is where, as we go, every weekend, what is the status? There was an agreement with the French government, but it has never taken off. So, Mr. Nominee, those 4 issues, if you explain,
yes, Davis,
then you may get a good report from me.
Very quickly, for the unfortunate blackouts in the network, Chair, I do note we have had a number of blackouts which we have addressed and categorized into quick solution in short term, mid term, and long term. Whereas we have generated enough power because it is done by the private sector or off-government balance sheet. And the energy sector is totally unbundled in terms of generators, transmission, and offtake, or what you call the buyer market in KPLC. The transmission network is financed by the exchequer, through the exchequer. And with the inadequate financing of the transmission network, most of the challenges that we saw in the blackout was transmission in nature. Chair, we have 2 very specific challenges in Kisumu, Moroni, Chemosit, a network which links to Bomet through Kigati to Awendo, Homa Bay and Awendo. And that transmission network gets overloaded. When a system is overloaded, it drips to secure itself, just like the circuit breakers in our house. When it sends a fault, it will drip. So the drip, due to an overload, became a challenge. We have seen secured funding to get an alternative routing to get more power from Olkaria through Narok, Bomet, Awendo, and Homa Bay. So that the contractor will be on site shortly. We got a funding from Africa Development Bank and address that challenge. The other challenge that has been dripping the country, and where we occasionally, for those of us who live in that region, do pull out feeders. Pulling out a feeder is load shedding. And so a few areas would be load shedding to ensure that it doesn't drip the whole country while we build this network very quickly. We've had a challenge in Takwel, a place called Ortum, Kitale, where we did put some 3 solar plants called Alten, Selenkei, and what happened is those solar plants caused a network constraint. And so we've not been dispatching Takwell because of the take-or-pay challenge of delivery of power into the system. Chair, that has since been resolved. We have gotten the transformers into Otum. Otum is in some place in West Pokot there, and we've gotten the transformer to Kitale. And the network constraint or the congestion of having to transmit more power through a line has been resolved. We are also working on something called to be able to manage voltage stabilization. We are working on STATCOMs on the Ethiopia-Kenya line to be able to address the voltages so that we do not have this intermittence and a network disturbance which causes a blackout. And so those are being addressed. Unfortunately, they belong to Ketraco where they are addressed through the balance sheet, but that is being addressed, Chair. With regard to...
Point of order, Chairman.
Yes, Mary.
I have not heard him mention Busia and Kakamega because blackouts cut across. Actually, you cannot even put a business in Busia because you persistent blackout. So mention something about Busia and Kakamega and Bungoma.
Allow me, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Chair, I should have possibly said west of Kenya.
Call me Speaker or Chairman, not
Chairman,
Chair.
Chairman, yes. This challenge is really characteristic of most of west of Kenya. You know, most of the generation is in the Seven Forks.
It's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare. Yeah. But with the construction of the line to carry power from Olkaria direct to west of Kenya, a very good capacity line, that problem will be a thing of the past. That's being
when
done.
Will it be ready?
Another 18 months, but what we are currently doing, we have got mitigation. We've built a line from Sondu through Awendo to be able to deload Chemosit, Kigati. So there's a lot of work being done. And let me say this, Chair.
He's sitting on a chair.
I'm sitting on a chair. I'm not a chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Let me say this.
Yes.
Since I came to the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, we've been working on the critical projects which had been started rather than the appetite of starting new projects. These have been historical challenges. We are sorting them. Whoever comes, my colleague who comes to the office, there are ongoing projects as we speak today. We are accelerating them because of that challenge. In fact, to put lives to the number of load shedding, occasionally on a day-to-day basis, we are load shedding up to 140 customers to be able to remove the overload on the line. So conscious of that, including hospitals, including industries, factories, the tea factories. Conscious of that, Chair, we are working around the clock to ensure that we deliver this in the shortest possible time.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I'm not asking a question, but Mr. Speaker, looking at the time, only 3 people have asked questions, and we're almost an hour. So if the nominee, please, could just be short and precise.
Going forward, nominee, when you ask a question, just answer it. Are you selling Kenya Airways? No. Are you pumping in more money? Yes or no. Then we make progress. Let me now start from this side.
Why don't I finish Jeanette? And I'll just 30 seconds. Rironi Molo was concession to the French company. I think the pricing again is what I called a term sheet. We'll relook at that and be able to bring the cost right, possibly do what we must do to deload or congest that road. It's a matter of priority to be able to move traffic to west of Kenya. The road construction, what criteria will we use? Chairman, I introduced my formative life in traffic engineering, and we'll need to do more of really ensuring we look at traffic, we look at opening new areas for economic purposes. Think about the Lapset. It is a new development corridor. You may not need traffic to open Lapset because we need to shift development to a new development corridor. And so we'll use all those kind of clustered frameworks to be able to open this country, working with the members of parliament, like I've worked with most of you on the last mile, to be able to open this country. Thank you.
Good. Let me start from Robert. Then we go to Mary, Amisi, Mule. Then we come back this side.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And please ask one question each. Don't and make no preamble to your questions.
Speaker, there are very critical things I needed to know from the nominee. So first and foremost, the road maintenance levy that was introduced recently from 18 shillings to 25 shillings by EPRA was done, in my opinion, without reference to the National Assembly. And despite also the fact that Kenyans, when there was public participation, they said no. I would like to hear your opinion about that. And there's some clarity on the G2G deal. Why was National Oil Corporation of Kenya involved? Because there is a belief that it wasn't. And then on the same deal, when you say that you're paying for fuel in Kenyan shillings, I want clarity, because I am very well aware that Kenyan shillings are not legal tender outside this country, outside the region. So how is it that you are able to pay for, because that has always been the comment, that we are paying for fuel in Kenyan shillings. How would UAE or other countries out there receive Kenyan shillings as legal tender? And finally, on the transport sector, which you're being dominated to, how will you deal with the three critical things? One, road safety. Two, the menace of traffic police on the roads, and finally, of course, the high cost of transportation. Thank you, Chairman.
Swali moja.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I would like to ask Davis, our nominee, this one question. The north of Kenya, that is Malindi, Tana River, Lamu, those areas are very productive, but the productivity has been hindered because of the lack of the airport in Malindi, a good airport. This has been a question that every government has not wanted to face, that we must, Malindi is decaying because of the lack of the airport. Over $100 billion investments in Malindi, they are coming down because of the lack of the airport. You're a clever man, that I know, because I've worked with you before, and I want to declare my interest. What will you do really to solve this problem of the airport? Secondly, the open sky question. We are protective of KQ, yes. But again, we also need to open this country to more investment by allowing other airlines to come in. If Ethiopian airline can fly to tourists from Addis Ababa to Nairobi, then the airport, the tourist is stranded there waiting for Jumbo Jet to fly to Malindi at 7 in the evening, and they arrived at 7 in the morning. Why would you do that and kill tourism just because we want to protect KQ? What will you do to solve these two key legendary issues, the Malindi airport and the open sky policy in this country? Thank you.
Answer those three questions, two from Robert, one from...
Chairman, the issue of road maintenance levy, which granted has done very well, because you will notice that our highways are very well maintained, is a good thing in terms of the ratio that I've seen on how it gets to Kena, Kura for the urban, and Kera. And we'll need to look at whether we need to redimension and get some savings. Are we over-providing? Are those percentage distribution frameworks supporting? Because whereas the road development does not have any revenue because we rely on the exchequer support, can we be able to, in line with what I said earlier, having to get more of off-balance sheet road development in an area where we'll be together looking at a policy on tolling, road tolling, so that you pay as you use. You see the expressway is fairly popular, and yet people are willing to pay today rather than really pay when they are not using. So we look at that together, honorable members. Ongoing, we will really because of the 7 shillings additional that was, like you said, hurriedly, without coming to the House. We'll need to look at that together. I think it's topical. I don't know whether it is in court as we speak, but it's an area where if we socialize Kenyans, like I said, from the word go, and understood the need to be able to open up this country for economic development, it's one thing that could help us in working on securitization and really coming into your constituency in Eastern Province and opening up that region for development. So we look at that together because it's a very topical issue as we speak today. NOC wasn't considered because NOC was not able to play in this space. The space belonged to the international oil marketing companies who are able to work with AAA or investment grade banks to be able to give us products on deferred LCs for 6 months. At the time when we did this, NOC has been having a very big challenge, and in fact we are commercializing NOC at the moment, Mr. Speaker. It ran itself into a problem when they brought 2 cargoes that disappeared in the high seas in 2011, and they have been crumbling with a debt of 8 billion, and therefore, Chair, it's when you really try to really pick up what you cannot manage. So the international oil marketing companies were allowed to appoint local OMCs companies who had a relationship or accounts with them to be able to offtake the products in Kenya, because the trade finance is a bit of a complex area, because this is really employing trade finance to be able to take products today and pay 6 months later. Pay in Kenya shillings today. In the meantime, because the dollar accumulation was very tight, buy the dollars in a structured form where KCB, Standard Chartered are the only people going to the market through central bank, in a very structured way. We had a committee called TRIMCOM, Treasury Risk Investment and Management Committee, which meets every Wednesday. And therefore, we had a very structured way of taking the shillings and going to the market from the 120th day to buy in a structured way, so that we also removed the interbank rate, which had gone off completely. So NOC was not included. They could not play in this space. Regarding the final question from
Speaker.
Malindi Airport.
Malindi Airport.
How did the cargo disappear? That is the question. The dollar. That's what he's asking, the chairman.
Let me 1, 2.
Let me mention that. Let me come to that. The traffic, the road safety, traffic issues, and high cost of transportation is something with the technology today. Let me just say, I'm aware that technology is being employed to be able to have an intelligent system with cameras on the road, with an electronic wallet that gives you point for good driving, removes point, and be able to eventually even cancel, with a kind of fine system that can be operated in this electronic space. We should be able to address. I know there is a project which is already going on. We'll need to review that and confirm. There is an ITS, Intelligent Traffic Management System, which is going to be addressing offenders at junctions and things like that. We'll look at that together and implement that quickly. Road transportation or transportation then becomes expensive because of the challenges inherent from the cost of fuel, the cost of congestion, and then so on and so forth. Traffic management becomes very important today, where even with Google Maps, you are able to choose the route without traffic. There is no reason why, when I'm coming from Bomet, Honorable Speaker, I have to drive into a dead traffic end and slip over in Maimayu escarpment, when I could have actually, because of traffic management technology, just go out through Naivasha and get to Nairobi in 2 hours, and instead end up sleeping in the escarpment, and yet the technology is there today. So we'll implement those aspects of traffic management together. Malindi, Mheshimiwa Owen, I know Malindi is passionate. It's a tourist destination. We'll need to sit down and work together and see, like, from a traffic perspective, tourists would rather be flying than going on that narrow road into Malindi. And there is no reason why we cannot sit together quickly and dimension upgrade of Malindi and be able to attract more traffic. But more importantly, look at how commercial that should be, so that we do not get into the kind of bending bills that we talk about. Open sky question, vis-a-vis the reciprocal requirement as per regulations is something we need to look at together. I do agree with you, but it's happening, it's bound to be happening at a very hard time for KQ when they are struggling. So let's see, do we push KQ to improve as we open our skies with those reciprocal arrangements? Because even if we did a reciprocal arrangement and our flights to those destinations are the Embraer, which are not able, they don't have the belly staff to carry enough luggage. So we really need to work very quickly to see whether we need KQ to come up, and I think we do, and be able to work on the open sky policy with, more importantly, the reciprocal arrangements. Speaker, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Honour Davis, you've told us about your attempts to equalize provision of electricity in the country, and especially through the last mile. That's only 2 years, so it stands to be seen whether really there is anything feasible in that area. But now you go to roads. And as stated, there is great inequality in terms of road network in the country, and especially with what are known as stored projects, the stored roads. If I give you an example of Tharaka Nithi County, we have 3 roads started 10 years ago in 2014, and up to now we are still grappling with their completion. Will it be your policy that you will actually dedicate resources as a matter of urgency to completion of stored roads and projects so that at least the network can to some extent be equalized?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Abdul Rahim Daud, MP for Nominees, and I want to say I'm in the Committee of Transport, so I won't ask him transport questions. CS nominee, while you were in the energy sector, energy ministry, did you look at the fuel, the one we were told by Honorable Kiraito during his time as minister, that we had oil in Turkana? And if you did, why aren't we utilizing the refinery we had in Mombasa so that at least fuel could be cheaper than what it is right now? Because we are at the mercy of the big oil operators. Lastly, regarding, I don't know if I will ask, roads, they are the Mau Mau roads, you have heard of them. But those Mau Mau roads do not pass through the whole of central Kenya. It is just a portion of central Kenya. Will you think of extending it to the other part, Mount Kenya East as well? Because we do not have the Mau Mau roads. And we had Mau Mau even in Meru, Tharaka Nithi, and Embu. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Let me start with George Murungaru regarding the note in Menti and the concern of stall projects in Tharaka Nithi. We do not have an option. We don't have an option. We've signed contracts. The interest will be piling. The bending bills will be piling. Unless we have a way of exiting, which I think they were considered before they were contracted, we'll have to look for funding solutions. And Chair, like I said, like the GTG, Chairman, we have to think out of the box. Chairman. Regarding, so we don't have an option. We have to work on those roads.
Chirchir, what these members are asking you is, assuming you get favor from this committee and you are recommended to be appointed to that ministry, what plans do you have to tackle pending bills other than complain about pending bills? I think that is what members want you to tell us. What innovative ideas do you have when you get into office, if you get there, to get pending bills out of the way and start embarking on new projects or stalled projects?
Let me and very fluid. Like David Kosing did raise, we need to look at securitization of the little revenues that we have in the road maintenance levy. Number two, why I say it's very fluid, depending on whether we are able to pull through the debate of the additional, that could be a very good area to fully securitize. If we securitize 7 shillings, and which works to 31 billion annually, and if you were to securitize that for like 10 years, that would be 310 billion. We can do a bullet payment on a pricing of 300 against maybe 250 billion because of the cost of money, and be able to address that challenge today. But again, like I said, it is fluid. We need to sit down together and look at the options. There'll be a number of options that we can look at together. Absolutely. As regarding Rahim's question on electricity, you do know that I had, when sitting in the Ministry of Energy chair, I sat with the county leadership from the various county in many breakfast meetings, and Rahim happened to have been in the breakfast meeting for. Chair will need to look at how to harmonize the redistribution of resources to address opening. I did write to every member of parliament in May last year, Chair, to look at how many primary schools or public institutions were not electrified in each constituency. With that database, we've been able to allocate money subject to meeting the social obligation of public institutions, so that if you are 100% electrified, Chair, why wouldn't we give more money to Rahim or to George in Tharakanithi to be able to equalize and bring the whole country into an equal footing in terms of electricity or energy for all? We'll do similar frameworks in roads. We'll sit down together and map what we need to do to be able to really push the country forward. As regarding exploration of tallow and the discovery of oil in Kenya, we are at a phase called field development plan. We have a big field development plan that should be coming to Parliament. It is being reviewed by the regulator. Once the regulator reviews, it will go to the minister, and within 30 days, the minister will bring it to Parliament. And what the field development plan does, Mr. Speaker, Chairman, is it looks at moving the concessionaire from exploration to production in line with the production sharing contract. It looks at the financial ability for them to build the system to produce the crude oil. It looks at the technical capacity of that farm. So currently we are reviewing the field development plan, and it will be coming to Parliament in due course to see whether we can move from exploration to production, because there is the risk of, if not properly done, moving the concessionaire and staying in production for the next 10 years. So we are looking at the financial and technical capacity to be able to do that. Refinery becomes an option in terms of bankability of the project as to whether we export crude through a pipeline out of Lamu or Mombasa, or whether we refine. And therefore, that could help us to utilize the refinery in Mombasa that we closed some times back. Mau Mau roads, we can look at that together, Chairman. It is too early, but suddenly we will work to be able to dimension what we need to do together. Thank you.
Mary.
Thank you, Chairman. Nominee, in the collapsed finance bill, there was an allocation of 50 million for electricity distribution, 50 million for each constituency. I'm wondering whether you're going to carry that approach along with you to the Ministry of Transport, so that we have that equitable distribution of resources, so that if you decide it is 50 kilometers per county, we all benefit from 50 kilometers per county, so that regions like Busia can also get a road, a tarmac road, from Butula all the way to Amukura and Teso South, and other counties. Secondly, Nairobi Expressway was constructed to ease congestion along the highway. But sometime in January, the toll charges were increased. This defeats the purpose for which it was intended. Because now how do you reap from, how do you encourage people to use the highway and also benefit from economies of scale? What are your thoughts on the kind of charges that are being levied on the expressway? Thank you.
Amisi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You asked for one question, but I beg you, give me two, because the last one is important for me. The first,
start with the important one.
The very, very important one, Mr. Speaker, is that I come from a constituency that do not have even a single kilometer of road of bitumen standard, and it has been like that since time immemorial. Mostly they say because it has been represented by opposition leaders, but I doubt. 20 months ago, we were here with the predecessor of this ministry. And I did ask him the same question, and he said that in 100 days, I will see miracles. Now it's 20 months down the line. I want to ask you, when do I expect to see at least a kilometer of bitumen standard in my constituency? And it's not just my constituency, Mr. Speaker. It is a program that needs to check that there is equal distribution of road network across the country, irrespective of where the region falls, whether it's in opposition or in the government. But there must be a clear national rationalization program of all constituencies, so that if a kilometer is built in Mombasa, there is another kilometer built in Kitale. We must have that, so that the constituents don't think that it is a failure of a member of parliament, when it is actually the failure of proper program of the ministry. And then the question I wanted to ask, Mr. Speaker, is that our roads and infrastructure are majorly World Bank funded, and IMF, International Monetary Fund. Mr. Speaker, World Bank were financial institutions that started to reconstruct Europe after the war on Europe, after the World War II. There were proper development in Europe before. The purpose of World Bank was to reconstruct Europe after the World War II, including Japan and other Asian countries. Now, it is 80 years since the World War II ended. We are still reconstructing. The purpose of that World Bank is not commensurate to the issues of the global South. In this country, we've never had war, whether it's local, global, even the Mau Mau did not destroy any road. We cannot talk about a fund that used to reconstruct, coming to develop an underdevelopment. So, Minister, you are going to a ministry that is heavily, we know the roads network is capital intensive, but you are going to a ministry that is going to be heavily dependent on the Bretton Woods institutions, whose purpose of establishment is completely different for our developmental path of our country. Do you have any policies of change that will ensure that this country does not continuously depend on external funding, loans that are crippling our economy, loans that we are continuously at the yoke of external loans? Which policies are you going to depend on them? World Bank, number one, and the IMF, or you are going to change? And in which way are you going to change?
Yes, nominee.
Let me start with Honorable Mary Emase's question on, yes, if we make it brief, let me just answer yes, we'll do some equitable distribution of resources. Maybe
that's good enough.
We'll do that.
Yes.
And I think that really answers Kalip Hamisi's question, Honorable Kalip, for Sabauti. The Bank of Reconstruction being what it is today. The
point of order, Mr. Speaker. That's how I was answered by the predecessor. I don't want to fall into the same. I just ask, do you have any rationalization program that will ensure not just Saboti, that every part of this country has an equal distribution of red network, so that Saboti will also benefit?
Thank you, Chair. I was not going to make the 30 days promise to Mheshimiwa, but I was certainly going to, like I said, in respect to the answer to Mary Emase Mheshimiwa, that we'll try to work together to see equitable distribution of resources, look at how to open up this country economically because of ensuring that we need to get the products to market. But more importantly, like I said earlier, what are the alternative funding options? I did make my opening remarks that we are doing our best in energy to get power to get into every corner of this country. And we are using a lot of off-balance sheet we are not getting money from the National Treasury. So to the extent that we today are having an unfunded commitment of about $1 billion, we'll need to sit together to be able to look at the resources that come out of Treasury. Are we going to get it to the Ministry of Roads or State Department of Roads as printed estimates, or are we going to work together to equitably ensure that those printed estimates do cover every part of the country? Mheshimiwa Hamisi, I will really want to be a player in sitting down with all the honorable members to ensure equitable distribution. And like you said, what are the options of funding roads? We'll look at that together, more importantly, to ensure that we don't over-rely on the Bank of Reconstruction after the World War. We do have other options.
Mukami.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. There is a...
Chairman.
Okay. Okay.
Honorable Speaker, a point of
thank you.
information.
Yes,
Honorable Speaker, allow me to solve this issue of chair and the chairman. And if you go to the dictionary, it actually says that one, as a noun, a separate seat for one person. Secondly, as a verb, a person in charge of a meeting.
That I am not a chair. Go on, Mukami.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
These are, Honorable Waziri, there is a concern from the local contractors. They have raised concern about being overlooked in the awarding of contracts in the roads and transport sector, with the preference often shown for foreign contractors. This trade results in the repatriation of earnings. That means those contractors, the foreign contractors we are giving business here, they are not banking that money here in this country. What specific measures would you introduce to encourage the participation of local contractors and ensure they have a fair chance in the contract award process? Additionally, how will these measures help retain money within the country to boost our economy? Thank you.
Meshi, be like your neighbor, one question.
Chairman, I have two questions. One is a very short one because it is an ongoing problem which I've just witnessed in my constituency and other constituencies.
But Chairman, I don't think it's fair. When you say one question, other people are asking two questions.
I'm going to stop her after one.
Thank you, Chairman. I've seen my colleague here, they have asked two questions. Dawood, Emase, Amisi, yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, my first question on the LAPSET project. This project has been a milestone from the last regime and even the current regime. And to me, this is a project where can be a game changer in terms of our economy, be it locally or internationally. Billions of shillings have been consumed, be it for compensation and even building of the port. Currently, what is the status in terms of operationalization in the LAPSET corridor? Two, what unique approaches are you going to do to ensure that we fully realize operationalization of this port of Lamu? My second question, on the same breath, do you have any specific programs you intend to employ to ensure that you create employment to our youth? Because this has been a thorn issue. In fact, even His Excellency the President has been talking about it, that we need to have a national conversation and we address the issue of unemployment, especially to our youth. Lastly, but not least, it is on the issue of duplication of road works among three entities, the county government, the Kura, and Kera. in most of cases, there are scenarios whereby a road has been built by the county government, Kura is doing some repair and maintenance, Kera is also doing some repair and maintenance, and you don't know which fund it's been lost just in the middle of that. So we need to have classification, a proper classification of roads, so that we know this road belongs to county government and these other roads belong to, they're under the entity of Kera, Kura and Kenha. There is a lot of duplication, especially Kura and county government. For Kena, I think it's okay. For Kera, it's somewhat okay, but Kura and county government. Thank you.
Nominee, you know you are not a minister for roads yet, so you're only giving your futuristic plans if you get there.
Thank you again, Honorable Speaker, Chairman. The question from Mukami regarding LAPSSET and the equal opportunities for employment of the youth. You know, Chair, we've done something. Chairman, we've done something in the procurement where we did deliberate policy to be able to allow the youth and women PWDs at 30%. It's a question of implementation, but we need to have a deliberate policy to ensure that our local companies are really having a stake in building over roads. We'll need to work together to look at that policy to ensure that there is a fair way of ensuring that we are able to build our companies so that in the years to come, we should be like other countries where we are even exporting contractors to other destinations to build infrastructure. Regarding employment for the youth, I think it's an important area where if we don't address the question of the youth, it's a time bomb waiting to happen, and it's already happening. So we need to work very closely together to ensure that we do have the kind of initiatives that we have seen before, where we had, for example, Kasi Mitaani, deliberate policy for the foreign contractors. When they come in, they are not the ones operating those machines, because just to say, Chairman, in Kenyan or GDC, we do the drilling of those steam wells. We build power plants with Kenyans. It cannot be that when contractors come to build our roads, even the operators are of foreign whatever, to be able to employ our youths. We need to address that. So we need a deliberate policy to ensure that we are able to employ our youths. The opening up of the infrastructure in the SEZs, which is one area where we need to work very quickly. We are opening Dongokundu. It's a lot of work from roads and transport. We are going to be opening all those, as he said, we need to deliberately work quickly in those various areas, including the LAPSSET corridor, just to marry the question of Mukami and Mishimbogo, that LAPSSET is a new development corridor, just like Mombasa all the way to Kisumu. The developments are about 50 kilometers on either side of the road. When we really move quickly, it's in the interest of the country to open that corridor to support South Sudan, to support Ethiopia, to support our oil exports, to support what we need to do to open a new development corridor and possibly reduce the cost of land around the 50 kilometers on either side of the northern corridor that is currently so congested. So the question of youth is a central aspect in really ensuring what the economic advisors have basically said. Can we do more of capital intensive investment, or do we do more of what would be labor intensive investments? It's a question of how do we employ our capital? Do we employ capital to create jobs, or do we employ capital to get big returns? Because the owners of capital basically just want to get return and they don't care about creating jobs for our youth. So we look at those policies, Mheshimiwa, to ensure that we do really address the challenge of the youth. Lamu would certainly be a new city as soon as we open LAPSSET because of that destination in terms of the port and the challenge that we have today. We have 3 ports which have been built, so much money sunk there, we need that port to be functioning. I know we only used it the other day to ship the fertilizer. We have used it again to ship the cattle to the Middle East. We need to quickly work together to see how that port can return on the investment that has been put on that. Kura, Kera, and Kena is something we look at together. Are there duplication of roles? I think in the 47 parastatals that were supposed to be, we are seriously going to be looking, once confirmed, at where there are duplication, we can be able to hem in and cut cost. Thank you, Chairman.
Sharia. Yes, Mukami.
Chairman.
Yes.
Waziri, you've not answered the measures you are going to take to make sure that the foreign contractors, they are going to retain the money in our country instead of taking their money in their country. Thank you. Out of the country.
Hold that. Sharia.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Speaker. Nominee Waziri Chirchir. My question is on what informs road agents, especially Kura and Kenha. I ask this with the knowledge that damaged roads in NEP counties in recent floods were unattended for months, hindering mobility of people and critical goods and services, while in other parts restoration was immediate. If approved, would you be able to do the same? God forbid, we don't want it to flood again and get our roads damaged, but what would you do differently to attend to them emergencies? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very good. You should all be like Sharia. Yes, Razo.
Sharia. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Churchill, I think listening to you, personally, I feel that Sessional Paper number 10 of 1965 is alive and it is likely to be refined. Why am I saying this? There are constituencies without a kilometer of tarmac road in Kenya. While when we drive around, there are constituencies with almost 70–80% of very well paved network. Electricity penetration. I think at least majority of the constituencies could be at 30–40%, which is really a plus. So I think you have a big task ahead of you if the House is going to approve your nomination, because road network is everything. It opens up the country. It opens a lot to contribute to the economy of this nation. I have 2 questions. One is on the issue of, yes, I'll ask one question. It is the issue of corruption, particularly in the road sector and also in energy, where the same group of people are the ones who are contractors in one project after the other. If they are not there, the project is not there. So how are you going to deal with that? The other issue is the issue of many towns in the ASAL are still operating on generators. They are not connected to the national grid. It is both expensive and it is also environmentally not friendly because of pollution. Maybe you can say something about that. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Capital flight, how are we going to address the challenge of capital flight? I think there are 2 forms on how we can manage this. One, localize a lot of the employment so that the labor is not foreign, where we have capacity. and as regarding really ensuring that the capital expenditure for the construction materials go to construction, it shouldn't be really that the Kenyan policy will not allow foreign investors to repatriate profit, but to the extent that the employment, the workforce is foreign, that is an area we can work on immediately to ensure that we do retain that and use to spur the economic growth in terms of circulation of that money. Surie Abdi, I think really we're going to sit down and work together as to whether we want printed estimates to come from Parliament so that we are just the implementers because we have shared equitably from the House, or whether you want to allow opening of those areas like Lapset, for example, is a good example. Let me use this, Honorable Speaker, to explain that we need to open a new corridor. We need to open that great fertile area of Northern Kenya.
You've said that 5 times.
And therefore there is need to take infrastructure to open Kenya. Russell, Saku, you do know that we are moving from Loengalani. There is funding. The project is close to Marsabit. Saku is basically Marsabit, and we are moving to Moyale, coming down to where? To Isiolo. And what we're going to do here...
Thank you very much. I think you have said the issue of Moyale and Marsabit. But the issue is, why does it take some things to be done faster in some other parts of the country, but for us, we wait as long as until the cows come home? Is it that we are in the same country or we are in different country? And what applies in one part does not apply to us. In fact, that is why I'm saying sessional paper number 10 of 1965 is alive and it is kicking very hard. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair,
you are not born when it was written, were you?
I don't know whether we should invert the sessional paper and ensure that Lapset will do it. When I've just used Lapset as an example to say we need to open up the unopen areas of Kenya and ensure that we do develop, ensure that we do have electricity, we do have roads, we do have water to be able to move out of the congested development corridor. It's more of a development corridor. I don't think we are going there because of the services. We just want to make the land useful, ensure that we move the population out to those areas. I just did mention in passing, as an example, Leongalani, Marsabit, and Moyale, which is a project ongoing, and we are going to make sure that we do have step down and feeders to support the people in those communities. Lapset, I think we've talked so much about Lapset. What are we going to do about corruption in roads so that the same contractors are not the same people just winning the tenders all the time? I think it is basically fidelity to the law. There is a procurement process. I go to the ministry, and I'm going to ensure that we do streamline whatever is not right. We do things according to the rules of the game and ensure that we do build capacity. When I reviewed the functions as per the order of what functions do sit in roads, I do see the mechanical transport fund, I do see all those services where we do have the registration of technologists and engineers, and we can really improve capacity of our own local people. There is no reason why today, 60 years after independence, we are not competing with those multinational contractors to the extent that it's not an exempt funding and it's an export credit chairman where they are following their contractors are coming to spend their money. All the local contracts which are funded through the exchequer, there is no reason why we don't have capacity.
A similar point, nominee, there's a Kenyan who sent me a message that locals cannot possibly compete with big Chinese contractors for the reason When you give a Chinese contractor, I don't know if it is true, the government gives them free maram pits, free quarry pits. Sometimes you allow them to bring equipment duty-free. They exempted from VAT. They bring cement from Indonesia and Malaysia, half the price of our cement. How do they compete with locals? Somebody has sent a message for me to ask you, if you get to the ministry, assuming you'll be approved, how will you correct this? Because you can't tie somebody's hands at the back and tell him to fight fairly with a person whose hands are free.
Chair, and that's when I said Exim, you know, Exim banks are export credit banks which are meant to support the investors or the contractors of a particular country to do business abroad. So that really we are competing with a supported competitor where the Exim facility do give them that competitive advantage in terms of, because the purpose of an Exim is to export services, to export capital, but follow and employ that capital using their own personnel. That's why when we get a facility from Japan, it's more of the Japanese who do the job. When we get a support from China, it's more of the Chinese who follow that money. We need to sit down together and look at how do we ensure then that the local contracts which are funded by the Kenya government are not exported to support the foreign capitals. So it's something that we must be deliberate. We must be deliberate about that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Thank you very much, nominee. I've listened to you, but I just want to ask you a more of a constitutional requirement. Kera, Kura, Kena came into play before the Constitution 2010. Then after Constitution 2010, we got the devolved governments, whereby the total confusion kicked in. As this House, if approves you, I want to hear what national are you going to use? Are you going to continue doing the same, or we are going to go back to the drawing board to establish a roads authority which caters for equal distribution of roads? Whereby, if you look at right now, Mr. Davis, after the current rains, even the existing roads have extremely been damaged. And I know very well, you talk to Kera, you talk to Kura, you talk to county governments, you talk to Kenya, no budget to redo those roads. Not even, we are crying for new ones. The existing ones, which can spur this economy by transportation of goods, there is a problem. I want just to hear from you as the new CS once approved. What is your vision on this lacuna of the Constitution?
Go ahead, Davis.
Speaker, I think Stephen makes a profound point, because I look at Kenya Road Boards Act 1999, I look at Kenya 2007, I look at KERA 2007. So the legislation was done before the new constitution. We need in line to harmonize and ensure that the articles, or rather the law is in line with the constitution. But more importantly, Chair, again the same question from Mule, is that we raised about 70, last year or the current year, we raised 79.9 billion on the road maintenance levy. And we do see fairly well-maintained highway courtesy of this road maintenance levy. There should be no reason why the Kera portion or the Kura portion for the urban, as much as it is supporting the national highways to maintain good infrastructure, does not cover all the areas of Kenya equitably, to the extent that a road is classified, it belongs to that class. There is, again, reclassification is another thing we need to talk to, but certainly with the funding in road maintenance, we'll need to sit down together and ensure that we are able to maintain all our roads. I think the support from the road maintenance levy, to me, it seems to be fairly good. And to the extent that it seems to just be a distribution challenge, and we'll need to sit down and work together on that. Thank you.
Naisula.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to put it to the nominee that in case he's approved, the docket that he's going to, Kenyans perceive it to be very lucrative. I don't know why, but that is the feeling out there. And one thing is that Kenyans, we have an insatiable appetite for kickbacks, you know, in most of the things. And I'm aware that in the last regime, we lost Qatar making JKIA their hub to Rwanda. And most of the time, the people who come to our country wanting to invest here, they say it is because of kickbacks.
You're saying we lost it because of kickbacks?
I'm saying because Qatar. I'm saying because the allegations that mostly when investors want to come to Kenya, we ask them for crazy kickbacks. And people then leave the country, they go to countries like Ethiopia, to Rwanda, and if they invested here, I am reliably informed that they were going to do for us another, the second terminal. We would, you know, so instead of the kickback, we would have gotten investment. They would have helped us with infrastructure of even the existing one. I want to just ask.
Chair, on a point of order, you know, we are also getting information that we didn't know. Honorable Lesuda said in the last regime, did she mean the outgoing cabinet secretary who the honorable...
No, the previous... That is not a regime.
I thought she meant the regime in the ministry.
No.
So is the outgoing,
regime.
the former regime?
Yes.
The
I know where you're going with that. I am a very objective legislator. Yeah. And so allow me to ask this question. Where you were the chair budget. Anyway, let me carry on. And so, in case you find yourself in this office, and we have people, for example, like Emirates, we have people like Etihad, or others who would want to come with the same offer to our country. I would like to get your view on what you think of such partnerships, which for me I think would be beneficial to our country. It is on the same thing that I've been pushing for the non-motorized transport, where we take care of our cyclists, where we take care of our pedestrians. We cannot be having roads for the minority who are driving, and then our people who are walking and cycling, who are the majority, are squeezed at the corner of the road, and we are killing them every other day, bicycles. But the argument is that the money is not enough for it, because we have enough money for kickbacks when you get a road, but you don't have money to do the footbridge and also to do the pedestrian. Lastly, is that I just want to pick your view on loans versus development. You know, we are asking for roads, and then where do we get it? You know, your view on whether, you know, we'll still have capacity to do loans. Mr. Speaker, allow me, this is a question from someone whom I think it's an important question, where someone is asking that I ask the nominee, in case you find yourself in the office and you find out that the Star Times, which monitors SGR in real time from it actually, and he's confirming that he has seen it, SGR monitors, Star Times monitoring SGR in real time from its headquarters in Beijing. When you visit Star Times headquarters in Beijing, there is a room with big screens mounted on the wall, monitoring every terminus of SGR in real time. Even if this infrastructure was funded by a loan from China, why should monitoring be done in Beijing?
I thank you, Speaker. I think mine will be in the form of a comment. And the nominee, I don't know whether you know the area you are going. The area you are going is a people's area, is MP's area. It's almost like a market, because roads touch on everybody in this country, and therefore it's a critical thing. So my only comment to you, nominee, hearing from a lot of members of parliament who told me to bring up this issue, is about your availability, about your accessibility. People cannot get you in the office, people cannot call you and receive their calls, particularly MPs, and therefore I think you need, I don't know what you will tell this committee. If you are approved to become a CS, please go and work on that part of your skill so that you can be able to be accessible to as many leaders as possible. Thank you, Chair.
That comment, which I hope the nominee, if favored, will take into account. Gikaria, the last one.
Thank you, Chair. Chairman, sorry. Kenya is strategically located for purposes of, the landlocked countries, Uganda, Rwanda. Your predecessor, when he was here 20 months ago, there was this aspect of delay on the road by the way bridges, police roadblocks, the bumps on our road, and so many other issues that occurred to that. As you have said, told us about the transport management system, where as an individual using a personal car, I might divert and go, but trucks will not have that choice. They will just have to stick because there are those way bridges, and that delaying the traffic to our neighboring countries to a point that there was a time they were threatening to use other routes for them to be able to. In line of that, maybe what policy have you put in place even to address the first phase of addressing the great North Road, that we were going to have a dual carriage from Rironi all the way to Mau Summit, and then thereafter onwards all the way to Busia. So maybe, by that time, the minister had indicated that the dual carriage would be starting, I think, in a year ago, but it has not started. Secondly, the economic survey of 2024. In 2023, the road carnage accidents, 9,960 accidents, 4,324 lives lost, 10,762 serious injuries, 7,799 minor injuries. What policy are you going to bring in to address the road carnage and road accident in the country? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Davis.
Thank you, Speaker. Let me start with Naisola's lucrative nature. I think I did say, Chair, with the risk of repeating myself, that if you have a good framework, a good term sheet, which does stipulate the boundaries under which we are willing to allow investors to leverage and get reasonable return on their investment. And because the PPP Act of 2021 do allow competition, even when it's a privately initiated project, if before the closure of the project, Qatar comes and puts in another privately initiated project, and if the rates are more competitive, it should be good for our economy. And therefore, it's just a question of what I earlier said, fidelity and leadership, fidelity to the law and leadership at the ministry, so that even as we run PPP, can we run PPP in a more competitive way and ensure that even as we seek these people to come in, because of the very tight headroom, that we are not able to develop some of these infrastructure facilities to grow our country, we do have a very clear return on investment that is allowable. In the energy sector, we only allow 12.5% for every power generator on internal rate of return on equity. We do not allow a share debt equity of more than 25-75 because debt is cheap. And we really should be able to work on an economic model. And if we get a second investor who is more competitive, because the PPP Act allows competition, we should be able to address that and ensure that we give the best for our country. In terms of, I don't know whether I'm too brief on that, but let me go to the non-motorized. Yes, we need to have pedestrian-friendly roads. When those of us who like running from the rift even look for where to jog in the morning, we find that we are either running with the vehicles on the road, and therefore, Chairman, we can have more people even walking to work if we have got good pedestrian, really side walks, and even support the health for those of us who like to walk or run in the morning or in the evening. The loans versus development, there's a very interesting scenario I found while reviewing the notes on this loan versus development. When we borrow in the energy sector, we do subsidiary agreements to on-lend the loan to a place like Kenyan, and therefore they repay the full loan. When we did a loan to the railways, they took the asset and left the liability at the treasury. And so these are some of the things we need to see whether we can really have our state agencies working more profitably, having the asset and having the liability, and not just having the asset, sweating the asset and making losses while the liability is being paid by the national treasury. It's a bit, some of the things we'll need to look at more critically. But more importantly, on the area of the railway, the ports, can we build synergy? Let me just give a very quick thoughts, which I look at the fact that they are all under the ministry. We get the port with its challenges of clearing the container. The container then moves to Mariakani to be loaded onto an SGR, which is under a different management. It comes to ICD, which is a port facility. And whether it's going to ICD Nairobi or going to ICD Naivasha, it is changing hands, and the slag in those changeovers. And the fact that today, for what I've reviewed, the Kenya Railways is handling 10 to 20% of the cargoes. Does not add up. We need more synergy between Kenya Railways.
Is that a lamentation, or you are preparing to tell us what you...
I'm answering one of the questions which was asked in terms of how are we going to have a more seamless working together as a roads and transport ministry and being able to build synergy.
How will you do it if approved? That is the big question.
That is the answer, Chair. I'm saying we really will work to ensure that they work more closely together, and we should be able to grow the luggage coming out of the port to the railway and being able to make those kind of profits rather than transporting. Chair, let me use again an example and allow me to do this. Pipeline, which is a transport facility, when Uganda decided to borrow from Kenya, the G2G, and Zambia is currently borrowing, we did not allow them to use the road. We said we've built a pipeline. We cannot be stressing our roads when there is a pipeline for transporting products. So my point is, we really need to build synergy in the transport sector so that
an excellent idea.
We have an better interworking between Kenya Ports Authority, Kenya Railways, and the intermodal kind of traffic movement, where when you are in the UK, if you bought a train ticket, it is used on the bus and it is used on the taxi. There is no reason why we cannot quickly move to that. The next, which I want to answer very quickly, is the control center for our SGR, which is out there. There is no reason why we do not. We have a national control center for our electricity movement of electrons across the whole country. And when you sit in Dandora National Control Center, even some of the challenges and where the blackout is coming from is visible in one room like this. There is no reason why we cannot work together with our partners and ensure that that employment is shifted to Nairobi, and we can watch our SGR from Nairobi, from Mombasa, from Mariakani, or wherever the National Control Center will be. Kosing, you make a very good point, and a bit of
Just a comment, don't belabor it.
I learned a bit in Rerek that I also saw a few, so I'll operate a fairly good open door policy for the members of parliament. Gikaria, the landlocked, there is no reason why we cannot afford to play that game. Mombasa competition does not come from within. It comes from Dar, it comes from Djibouti. We need to be fast. Otherwise, we'll see our cargoes going to Dar. We'll see them going to Djibouti. They are trying to build the other port up, Tanga in up Dar es Salaam. So we need to be competitive. We cannot afford not to open the road quickly to ensure that the movement of the outbound goods do give competitive advantage to our neighbors, and that they don't have to go to competition outside Kenya, because that's how we lose jobs, that's how we lose opportunities. Economic survey for accidents, Chair, I'm aware that we really, in this day and age of technology, and like I said, when we have the electronic licenses and all the cameras that I'm told they are being installed in various points on the roads, we should be able to address this. Let me look at that and see how more in this day and age we can employ technology to reduce accidents, to revalidate the drivers, to have, I'm told, the inspection, the vehicle inspection center, we have got so many, only 2 are working. And we are still training our drivers on the traditional manual board. There is so much room for improvement. We cannot afford to be losing lives in this day and age through careless road accidents, which we can monitor and bring and reduce that mortality significantly. Thank you, Chairman.
Chair, the Rironi Mau Summit Road, the whole carriage.
I've also answered that, Chairman, because Rironi Mau Summit is one exit into
that is the road that Junet asked.
Into Uganda?
And it was
absolutely.
Nominee, a few people have asked me to put the following to you. Tanzania is doing an electric SGR. If you are confirmed, will you speed up the extension of the SGR from where it is to Malaba, Kampala, arriving ahead of Tanzania so that you secure your cargo through Mombasa? Number 2, Kenyan from, I believe, Meru region. Will you consider upgrading the Nithi Killer Bridge so that you avoid accidents? Another one says, will you build toilets along highways to stop Kenyans from defecating in our trees and forests? Another one says, were you involved in the saga of the oil tanker concerning Jerry? Another one says, what affirmative action will you do for local contractors? And will you enforce the law on local content in contracts with foreigners?
Let me read another one from somebody who says, ask Honorable Chirichir whether there is any PPP deal that he signed in the Ministry of Energy, and if there is one, what are its terms?
I have one here too.
Yes, the last one.
Can you ask the cabinet nominee, David Chirchir, why there is huge cases of electricity brokers hacking smart meter codes in the country to destabilize the electric grid and to cut power bills?
Mr. Speaker, one person has sent me, Ministry of Transport gives PSC requirements for engineers, hence they only advertise engineers registered by EBK, and they don't include KTRAB, which is Kenya Technology Registration Board, who are graduates in Bachelor of Technology in Civil Engineering. What will he do about that?
Take 5 minutes to respond to those.
Chair, maybe he could also respond to one. Yes. The one for the toilets, I also got it. What he will do to deal with, is asking, ask CS Chirchir. The first one was on Kera, on the stalled contracts that you answered. How is he going to avoid loss of public funds that is paid to contractors as interest accrued as a result of delayed payments of IPCs?
One more, Mr. Speaker.
This one of toilets is very serious.
This one says, as the CS, both LAPSET to Uhuru government have allocated 10 billion out of the 18 billion meant for Lamu Garissa section. The Kenya Kwanza government has so far allocated only 35 million for the last 3 financial years. Right?
We have one more nominee to come, and it's 5:45.
SGR, we have a development fund called Railway Development Fund, which collects about 36 billion annually. This is an area where we need to quickly look at how to secure that fund so that we don't use for some maintenance or some small developments, and therefore be able to, with 36 billion revenue, which by law is designated for development, we can borrow against it and be able to support the Naivasha, Kisumu, Malaba very quickly. And I'm aware that Uganda are trying to really work with us so that we can get more goods and even support the kind of cargo, the volume cargo, and make Kenya Railways more profitable. So that's an area which, like you said, with competition coming from outside Kenya, we need to quickly work on that, Speaker. Nithi Killer Bridge, I honestly thought it had been done, so it will be on the priority list. It cannot be called a killer bridge. It's not a good name. The toilets along the highway is very progressive. I don't think it's expensive to locate toilets in between towns. And like you said, it's something we can look at. It's not an expensive investment on our major highways. And therefore, you see the modern petrol stations in Total, Shell, Rubis, having very nice modern toilets. We can be able to support that investment and ensure that on our highways we do have very good facilities for people to. It could be nice in terms of even people stopping and stop driving under pressure and causing accidents. It could actually reduce accidents by certain levels. Njeri oil deal was disposed in court. It was a very interesting case of somebody making a claim on a cargo that left Saudi Aramco, and that went to court chair. Nobody had involvement in Kenya. It was just some fraudster who wanted to be smart, because I think all the papers were just photocopied, and we did support the investigation and close the case because it was really presenting a very bad picture under the G2G, and it was bound to interfere with the supply of oil products into Kenya if we didn't work hard together to close that issue. Affirmative action on our local contractors is something I've talked to. It is a very topical issue. It's something, it's coming from outside, it's coming from within here. We need to work on that and ensure that our local contractors are supported and there is no capital flight, because we should be employing our local Kenyans. The law on local content is something that really, with the clinker industry, really working on the kind of duties that we have levied on imported clinker. We should be able to use more of our cement. It is very popular. We are getting more of investment. Industry could easily be growing from 7% GDP to a higher number if we support the local content. It can support our industry and goes further to answering the question of employment of our Kenyans. PPP on energy signed. Let me say, PPP on energy, I would actually dare say all IPPs are PPP. They are. Only that the law came much later. But the power purchase agreement that is signed, you develop a power plant, we sign to buy your product for 20-25 years, we give you a letter of support, we give you now we are using the ATIDI. We've got a very innovative trade insurance which can help us to forestall having to address the headroom of borrowing on or liability on government balance sheet on what we call the partial risk guarantee. So we are now using the ATIDI, Africa Trade Insurance Facility, and therefore, yes, there are many PPPs in energy. We have a very clear framework under EPRA, like I said, a term sheet, which dictates what is allowable to be able to have the tariffs right. There's a long waiting list of power generators. There's a long waiting list of people who want to build transmission networks. And unless we get the correct return on investment in line with our term sheets as developed by EPRA, it would be expensive to the economy. So we are working on that. Yes, we have a number of them. But there are none signed lately. You do know, Chairman, that Parliament did put a moratorium on power generation. And we're beginning to have a concern on whether we will not be load shedding by 2027, because I said we're currently developing power for 2027, 2028. And with a moratorium sitting in Parliament, we could be looking at a load shedding unless we work together. So that's just a side comment. Interest on delays. Interest, let me get from Ichungwa the interest on delay. I didn't get that properly.
Asking. You're asking what you are doing to, these SMSs are too many. How are you going to avoid loss of public funds that is paid to contractors as interest accrued as a result of delayed payments of IPCs?
Thank you, but because I realized I skipped one on the PSC registration of engineers who are employed as technologists. I want to assure members that in numbers, Kengen, Ketraco, Kenya Power employs a lot of technologies. I would really need to check if I was still the minister today, but I will put it in my handover notes to my colleague if it's confirmed, to ensure that we clarify that area of the Kenya technologies, because there's a registration board for the technologies, and there is no reason why it is not the engineers who really do the conductors and who build the network. It is these technologies. It is for transport, this one. It is for transport. So it's an area where I will basically follow up and check and confirm that we don't have any bias. The interest on loans is something we've really prosecuted, and I want to, without really disregarding that question, confirm that we did say the bending bills of 166 is made up of about 97 billion in principal and 60 billion in interest. It is in our interest, Chair, to ensure that we very quickly address the payment of these bending bills and put in a mechanism to ensure that the bending bills challenge, particularly for these ongoing projects, is addressed so that we do not have to pay that kind of money. And I agree it is a loss to the economy having to pay. By the time we finish building those roads, this is part of the cost, and the road moves from 200, 300 million because of interest and penalties on delayed payments. LAPSET, Russell, what was the question on LAPSET?
During the Kibaki government, it was 10 billion. Then they reduced from 18 to 10 billion. But now, over the last 2 financial years, there's only been 35 million.
I think LAPSET framework was meant to be a PPP corridor, as it were, and we did 3 parts where we invested that money to do the 3 parts which are ready. And that's why, Speaker, I said we need to work together to see how to utilize those 3 ports which are complete. We did path of fertilizer which came into the country. We have used it to ship the animals out of the country. We'll need to very quickly spend time marketing the LAPSET corridor. We need, when I talk to the field development plan for the pipeline, it will be following the LAPSET corridor. If we are able to close this field development plan and get the pipeline running along the corridor, we'll need the power lines for hitting the pipeline to run along. We'll need to...
Mr. Speaker, I really want Mr. Churchill, you confirm, is LAPSET a PPP or it was a Kenya government project that was conjoined with Southern Sudan and Ethiopia.
So, Chair, I will confirm when I go to office. But for now, let me not make commitments because, like I said, it's a very important corridor that Kenya can leverage.
It was conceived as a project between Kenya, Ethiopia, and South Sudan, and partly Uganda. That's why when it was launched by President Kibaki, and I was the foreign minister, Mele Zenawi from Ethiopia was present, Salva Kiir was present, and Museveni sent somebody. It was a dedicated port and corridor to be co-developed by these countries.
And so let me follow up. Like I said in my earlier comments, it's a very important corridor. It helps us to open a new development corridor. It helps us to have a second competitive port to support Mombasa, which is kind of congested. You know, Changamwe is fairly congested, and helps us to be competitive as compared to our neighbors, given the fact that whereas we are serving significantly Uganda, Rwanda, DRC, northern Rwanda and DRC using Mombasa, Lamu, apart from opening a new development corridor for Kenya, will leverage on South Sudan, Ethiopia, because of the challenges of Djibouti today and South Sudan and the challenge they have using the Sudan to export their products, and even the challenge they have with the pipeline at the moment. Thank you, Chairman.
In just 2 minutes, can the nominee, you said 2027 we may go to load shedding. Just tell us in 2 minutes, now that you're leaving that ministry, what it
He
means.
said Parliament put a moratorium on the development of new power projects. Did you say that?
Yeah.
Yes. Can you?
When I came into office as a Minister for Energy and Petroleum, there was a moratorium which had been put by the executive, and I have since gone to Cabinet to lift that moratorium. But soon, Parliament, through a motion from Jen Gagiri Laikipia, did put a motion and suspended all power plants. What we've been doing lately, with the knowledge that Kenyan is fully government, is working on bringing projects to financial close. We really need Parliament to help us, and maybe we need to spend more time with the majority leader to see how we can address whatever challenge there was. Have we addressed it? And therefore, the moratorium should be lifted so that we can license. And then, Chair, like I said, there's been, from the challenge of the year 2000 when there was a major drought and we brought most of the expensive generators, most of them are expiring, and I've talked to the 3 where we are not renewing the request they have made because of the challenge of cost. But more importantly, we need to bring more geothermal, we need to bring solar, and we need to bring more wind at very competitive price to really give advantage to this economy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, nominee. We're coming to an end. Let me ask you only one question. Assuming that LAPSSET does not take off, we have invested heavily in Lamu. Would you consider, if we gave you favor to become the minister, to give meaning to the investment in Lamu by developing a rail line for cargo haulage from Lamu to join the main rail line either at Voi or Mariakani, so that cargo, that instead of being diverted from Mombasa when it's congested to Dar es Salaam, you take it to Lamu and you haul it to Voi or Mariakani and put on the existing rail line either SGR or the old standard gauge, and be transported to Nairobi and beyond, so that we cannot wait in anticipation like the famous hyena syndrome of thinking the hand will drop when it will not, waiting for LAPSSET, which is dependent on other jurisdictions and other countries. We can still make Lamu work with the least cost development in the manner that I'm proposing to you. What do you think?
That's a great idea, Chairman, in terms of leveraging on the investment of the ground in Lamu already. Lamu is a deep port sea of about 17 meters. We can bring fairly LR2s, very big ships, which can reduce the cost of shipping and ensure that it's a great idea. And that's one thing I would certainly pursue. Very good idea. The distance from Lamu to whether out into Voi because you don't want to go to Mombasa because of congestion is just slightly over 150 kilometers. And that doesn't sound like it's a long distance. In terms of way lift,
there will be no heavy way lifts. You'll be passing through the
way
park.
lift is not a challenge.
Yes. We come towards the end. Davis, I ask you a few mundane questions that are nonetheless very important. Have you ever been adversely mentioned in any integrity-related report? You already said your name was dropped in Parliament on the infamous list of shame, and it ended and you went back to office. Do you hold any leadership position in any political party?
No, Chair, I don't.
What is your net worth?
My net worth, I'll need to confirm from, I think 500. There's a small addition from what I was worth last time when I came to, let me check the exact figure on my notes as I take the next question.
Yes. Check, so you check the next question. We have checked your documents against what we have. We find them correct, except you'll have to look at your year of birth. One of the documents says you are born on 30th September 1959. Another one says you are born on 30th September 1960.
The correct date is 1959.
So you should.
It's just the way I think some of.
Just look at your documents.
Absolutely, it is.
Underline. It's not. It's not fatal, but it's important.
I'll do that. I'll do that, Chairman.
Where is this one? Where is the wealth?
Net worth. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it, Chair. It is 509,800,000. 509,800,000. I think there's been some small growth of about 27.6 million. Page 7 of the document, and I filed the document.
Yeah. May I ask the nominee, in his statement of net worth, he has put a house in Spring Valley, valued at 95. Is this a historical valuation?
This is an historical valuation.
It must be a very small house.
In the short time, I've not had a chance to revalue.
Spring Valley.
That's what I was actually going to offer him.
Yes.
To buy it at a better price than this. If
half an acre of empty land in Spring Valley is 100 million.
Interestingly, Chairman, these are assets we bought when the value was 9 million. So this is an historical value.
I'm asking that because this valuation is not accurate, and therefore cannot be reflecting your true net worth.
Thank you.
95 million if it's for probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Anyway, you
If
have
it is
had
a
a
house, I
nominal
suspect.
growth, you say?
Thank you, Chair.
Yes. If you do correct evaluations, even Matundu is in Westlands.
Matundu is in Westlands.
Yes.
It's a flat.
Oh, a flat.
Yeah.
A flat, that's okay. Spring Valley, half an acre empty land is 100 million. So if you have a house on it, it must be much.
This is an historical value, Chair. I do agree. Thank you.
Yes, that's okay.
Yeah,
Or
but
maybe
Chair,
you
I
intended
think-
to dispose the property.
But maybe Honorable Chairperson.
Yes, we are not valuers anyway.
But Honorable Chairperson, it's probably better to tell the candidates to just say 95 million as at this year, so that because no one is going to go and start doing undertaking a scientific valuation.
No.
But you can say as at this period.
It's okay, Davis. We finish here and we let you go back to your undertakings and wait for the outcome of this process. We wish you well in your undertaking.
Honorable members, Chairman, let me thank the entire Honorable House for this sitting, and again reaffirm my commitment to serve. I'm ready, willing, and available to work and address the challenges in this sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, we have one more to go.
5-minute break.
Do a 5 minutes break. Then we start, order members. We start at 6:15 and stop at 7:30. So those of you with preambles before questions, you are put on notice.
As a teletraffic engineer after a 9-month course at the then Central Training School, where I learned the intricacy of managing traffics going into the various routes across the whole world, dimensioning, congestion, and things like that. Subsequently, I did rise in that position to the level of general manager, where I managed the ICT, information, communication, and technology. And in the nascent period of liberalization, I managed the divestiture and liberalization of telecommunication as a change manager, where we did at that time the communication authorities, laws and regulations that spinned off what is now the communication authority, which is the regulator in the telecoms industry, spinned off Postal Corporation and Telecoms Kenya, and issued the various licenses to Safaricom and Celtel at that time. Something that then catapulted the growth of telecommunication in what became competitive and very competitive from the monopolistic management of telecommunication at that time done by Kenya Post and Telecommunications. I later on moved on, honorable members, chairman, as commissioner, where I worked in the interim electoral commission. Soon after the challenge that this country faced during the post-election, I came in as one of the electoral commissioners, where I spearheaded various reforms, processes that built confidence that had been totally destroyed in the electoral process, and where Kenyans at that time did not believe in exercising their democratic right through the vote or the ballot. We built system at one time, chairman, honorable members, the Electoral Commission at that time was the most trusted organization in Kenya, ahead of the media and of course ahead of parliament at that time. Honorable members, after the term of reform, which also catapulted the promulgation of the new constitution, where we ran the referendum in the year 2010, we were part of crafting Chapter 7 of the constitution, which today really brings out the electoral process, management of the credibility of the vote, to the extent that when the ballots are counted at the polling station and transmitted to the central tallying center, it doesn't matter what you do at the central tallying center, because the results would have been announced in each and every of the 22,000 plus polling centers in the country, with the technology that pushes them to the cloud today, and everybody participates in the counting. Even when we've had the results we had in 2 years, where the difference between the winning party and the losing party was 60,000, we were able to come out of the electoral process with acceptance of those electoral results. In the year 2012, I had a stint of going close to politics when I became the Secretary General of the then party URP, where we worked with a number of leadership to form government, and I then thereafter was nominated and subsequently appointed to the position of Cabinet Secretary, Energy and Petroleum, a role I did work on for 2 years before a list of shame was placed to Parliament, and I was one of them, and of course several members of Parliament, and we went through the due process, and we got out of it over time, but not before some of our careers were unnecessarily tainted because of the procedure that was adopted at that time. Honorable members, I have walked the journey, and I come here today, rather 2022 again. I was nominated and appointed after the Kenya Kwanza won to this position that I've been nominated to. I was nominated to the position of Cabinet Secretary, Energy and Petroleum, and I did serve in that position until the 11th of July, when the entire cabinet was dismissed. Honorable members, I have done some significant work in my career, in my journey, in terms of creating and adding value to this economy, in building systems, and I have legacies which I do pride of today. And today I stand before you, I sit before you as a nominee for CS, roads, and transport. Let me leave it at that for now, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, that will do. I will now invite members to file questions to you, starting with the Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Allow me to question Mr. Davis Chirchir, the nominee, on where he served before, his immediate former position as Minister of Energy, and also to question him on where he's going, which is the Ministry of Transport. So, Mr. Chirchir, you are at the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum. You know very well that one of the biggest complaints Kenyans had was that the cost of energy, that is petroleum products and power, was extremely high. I think then we'd be interested in knowing what are some of the interventions that you made during your tenure to try and mitigate this. Then where you're going now to the Ministry of Transport, where two things that are really big that are being spoken about in that particular ministry. One is that is the cost of building our roads. I know that before the finance bill collapsed, the discussions were that to do the entire road network, almost ₦1 trillion is required or more. And then also there's a lot of unpaid bills. That's some of the issues that were brought before Parliament for contractors who have built our roads. So what are the interventions you will take if you're confirmed for this position of Minister of Transport? Are you going to look at joint concession roads and so on? And lastly, on the big elephant in the room, Kenya Airways. Now that you're going to the Ministry of Transport, if confirmed, that will be also an issue you'll deal with. Kenyans would like to know how you intend to deal with Kenya Airways. Are we going to put more money and seeing losses, or is there a way of dealing with it, or should it just be sold? We are interested in knowing what your views are on that. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Nominee, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker Gladys Boshole. Good question on what we've done and achieved as a country to bring down the cost of energy to where it is today. Let me start, Honorable Chair, by saying when I checked last, and then because of the concern when our President was going to the space to talk to the agencies, I did check the challenge of power and what we need to do to be able to address the cost of doing business in this economy. Cost of energy is one of the most insignificant contributor to the cost of doing business. In industry, the cost of energy in production contributes to up to 30 to 40%. And therefore, a country cannot be competitive if the cost of energy as a unit cost of production is significantly high. Chairman, honorable members, the energy portfolio is a very interesting area when I consider to where I'm going. A very structured area. We have a tool we call Least Cost Power Development Plan, which we've just signed off the 2024-2043 Least Cost Power Development Plan, which articulates the building blocks and how to match demand and supply. What happens, Honorable Chair and members, is that every bit and piece of energy that is generated is paid for by the customers, whether we sell it or not. So we don't generate power which you don't need. We have to ensure that we match the demand and the supply. And because the demand side can grow suddenly while the supply is built over 3 years, there's got to be very good planning. As we speak now, we are planning for power for Kenya for 2027, 28. In fact, those are the power plants which we are currently building in Olkaria, in Kiambere, Kamburu, Sola, and so on and so forth, in Meningai, in Nakuru. We are currently building power plants. And what we did to basically get down to the question to address the cost of energy is to really ensure that the energy mix in generation, we do generate power from solar, from wind, from geothermal. Those are the three cheapest cost of generation, including, of course, hydro. And the most expensive generation is from thermal. And during times of drought, we run thermal more because the hydrology would be low. Because of the hydrology having been good in the past 1 year, we've had a lot of water, so we are running our Kiambere, Kindaruma, Gitaru, Cascade fairly well. But more importantly, the mix to ensure that we do not dispatch the expensive power when we don't need to is a very important component in managing the cost of power. One of the profound things we've done, Chairman and honorable members, which I might even call legacy, is switching off a power plant called Moroni, which is very expensive. It dispatches power at about 70 shillings per kilowatt hour. So Moroni GT, which is somewhere between Kisumu and Moroni. We all know where Moroni is. We have also switched off a power plant called Kipevu 1. Moroni generates 60 megawatts. Kipevu 1 generates 74 megawatts. At end of life, it has reached end of life and we switched it off. And likewise, we've switched off 76.4 megawatts in Kipevu 2. These power plants alone, Chair, if to contextualize, it generates 210 megawatts, dispatches about 15% because it's only used for picking, but the cost to the economy is about 10 billion Kenya shillings annually, when it is dispatching at 15%. If we have to dispatch more because of not obeying the order of merit of economic order of merit of supply, the bill would go from 10, 15 to 20 billion. Those power plants are down. The promoters of these power plants have been through this town to see everybody to try and bring them back. But because of the cost of doing business, it doesn't make sense to give them another lease of life. The challenge of climate change commitment, which we have made for 2030 to be 100% green, is another one which has catapulted this country and placed it in a very, very good pedestal. So, Chair, let me end that initial question by saying it will be of interest for members when you write the report to check and confirm that in the month of July, both cost of electricity and cost of petroleum products is the lowest in the country in the last 15 months. And it takes a real difficult position to sustain those power plants not to be switched off, not to be switched on again because of what I've said, the cost of doing business and the climate change commitment which we've made for this country. As regarding some of the things that I will do where I'm going in the roads and transport, Honorable Chairman, honorable members, it's an interesting area. It will be interesting to note that where I come from in energy or where I've served twice before, if we have one pending bill, it is due to a court case. We don't have any pending bills. I have quickly checked the road sector with a pending bills of about 166 billion, with unfunded commitments of about 1 trillion, some with the Chinese government and some with the local contractors, unfunded. And I don't know, I've also checked, Honorable Chairman, that the exchequer support that goes to roads annually is about 55 million.
Alehab Mukami, Nyeri County.
Kaleba Misi Saboti.
We will invite you to take an oath, because whatever you say will be on oath. In doing so, you'll choose, depending on your faith, whether you need to swear on the Bible or the Quran. Which one?
The Bible.
The Bible. So be upstanding. Take the Bible in your right hand and recite the oath.
I, Margaret Nyambura Ndongo, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee on the matter under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you. You may take your seat and sign to that oath. Margaret, if you have your documents, give them to the sergeant to pass them on to the clerk to cross-check with what we have. Here. Thank you. Then we'll start. Dr. Ndungu, I'll open by inviting you and give you no more than 5 minutes to tell us who you are, your name, your education background, your working experience, your key competences, and your suitability for taking up the appointment for which you are proposed. Welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, members of this committee. My name is Margaret Nyambura Ndongo. Born in Nakuru County 52 years ago. I attended my primary and secondary school in Nakuru County, after which I proceeded for my BSc Information Science in Moi University, where I graduated in 1996. I did my Masters of Business Administration at the University of Nairobi, completing in 2000, and I did my PhD in Information System at the University of Nairobi, completing in 2011. I proceeded to Tshwane University of Technology in South Africa, where I did my postdoc between 2012 and 2013. Honorable members, my education in a multidisciplinary way, information system and business administration, has enabled me to do work in various fields, including being a lecturer at the University of Nairobi School of Computing, and also supervising MBA students in Tshwane University of Technology. I've also been a member of Multimedia Appeals Tribunal between 2018 and 2021. To show my competence for this job, for which I want to thank His Excellency the President for nominating me to be the CS nominee, Information, Communication and Digital Economy. I'll explain my experience in 5 main areas, starting with my research work, that I have done research that have informed policies in government ministry like Communication Authority, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, and even for the creation of ICT Authority that was created in 2013, informed by a study or a research I did in 2007 on e-governance. For policy work, which again is key for this position, I've been involved in policy work, having participated in the development of the National ICT Policy 2006, but then also the current policy 2019, I actively participated. Honorable members, I've also been involved in strategy development, having been the secretary to the task force that developed the National ICT Master Plan 2014-2018. I was also one of the 4 key advisors to the government in the development of the current National ICT Master Plan 2022-2032. Honorable members, I've also been involved in implementation of projects. Having started my first 8 years of work. I did computer assembly, I did content development. I also implemented projects linking local communities with alternative technology. We called them telecenters then in the 1990s. So between 1998 to 2005, I developed or supported knowledge exchange among rural communities in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. I also did the telemedicine project for the African Union, for the African Medical and Research Foundation in 2005 that again connected rural hospitals to central areas where doctors can get alternative advice. At the regional level, I've done work. I was seconded to the African Union Commission from 2019 until 2023. While there, among the projects I implemented was the African Union digital transformation strategy, which I was key in developing. I was also involved in supporting African Union member states in establishing internet governance processes. I also supported capacity building across the African Union member states and organized local internet governance forums that informed regional Internet Governance Forum, at then continental level, and then at the global level, where I coordinated African Union work at the Global African Union Open Forum. Honorable members, I've also been involved in the development of the African Union Child Online Safety and Empowerment Policy that was passed early this year.
Thank you, Margaret. That will do. It's a rich menu of what you have done. I'll invite members to ask you questions relating to the competence to which you have been proposed. It may also veer into what you have done. So we will expect you, when you ask any question, to be concise and precise and to the point, so that we can manage our time well. But nonetheless, the questions will be virtually from almost every member here present. We'll start with the Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and welcome, Dr. Ndungu. I have two brief questions. You're coming into office, if confirmed, at a time when Kenya is plans to digitize most of the government services. You're also coming at a time when we had challenges where some of our services like e-citizen have sometimes collapsed because they have been hiked. So the issue of cyber security and data security is rife. I'd like to hear your thoughts about it and what you would do if you came into office. And also the issue of the Cyber Crimes Act of Cap 79 of the Laws of Kenya and the Data Protection Act, Cap 411 of the Laws of Kenya. They were enacted by Parliament, hoping that they could stop computer misuse, cyberbullying, exposure of personal data, and also incitement, like we saw when we had the protest. What measures would you put in place to fully implement those particular acts of Parliament? Thank you.
Margaret, nominee, go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker, through the chair. On the issue of government services, the government has digitized most of their system and most of the application to ensure that all citizens across the country are able to get government services from wherever they are. And while this has happened, one of the critical things that we must always remember is the challenge of connectivity in the rural areas. And as part of what the government has done is to ensure there is inclusivity. As if I am appointed or if this committee find it fit to approve my nomination, some of the things I will do is, first of all, to ensure that there is inclusion in the digital space. Then there is the issue of safety and security, which you have said, that we need to work within the existing regulation. There is the Cyber Crime Act that clearly shows our behavior in the digital space, which again is governed also under the international laws. So that is an area that is of focus and which is critical for the sector. Going to your second question is about behavior in the digital space, and in particular during the time protection of the personal data. Some of the measures that I will implement will be, first of all, enabling the right policies and regulations. We have the Data Protection Act, which is being enforced, but probably going by what we went through is consideration of whether it is inclusive enough. Do we need to do more regulations? Do we need to do more consultation? Because it is clear personal data is personal data, and private people, our constitution clearly guarantee freedom of expression or freedom of the media, but then also there is the issue of privacy under Article 31. So again, what I will do is to work with all the stakeholders to ensure that we have the right policies, we have the right regulation, but then also they are enforced.
And then the cyber security, yes, because that's very important. Right now, Kenya doesn't have one central place where the security of their data. Every ministry works in its own silos, and that's why they can't read into each other. So just say about the cyber security. It was even rumored when we had a power blackout that it was a cyber security attack.
Yes, cyber security is a global challenge, not just in Kenya. And the approach will be collaborative, and we are talking of the various stakeholders within the industry and government agencies. So what I will do is again bring all the stakeholders in private sector, public sector, academia, develop data centers where government data can be hosted, and ensure that we have the right skills to manage these data centers. But then also, there's the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data, which again coordinate the work of the work in the cybersecurity and ensures that adjudication, if the attack is not from Kenya, again we are able to deal with those kind of issues. So it will be harmonization, collaborative approach, enabling environment, then ensuring that we are storing our data in safe data centers that are governed or operated using aligned with international rules and regulations.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Dr. Margaret. From your very rich CV, you have extensive experience working in the private sector and in consultancy. I was just wondering, one, you definitely have interacted with the Kenya Kwanza manifesto that had a lot to do with the digital superhighway and the establishment of BPOs, the ICT digital hubs that members of parliament will be establishing in their constituencies. I'd want to hear how you would leverage from your experience, especially in the private sector, to get more people to invest in places like Konza Technopolis that has stalled largely because of inadequate funding. Well, as we have seen in the private sector, a place like Tattoo City, there are BPOs that are coming and setting up and creating employment for thousands of Kenyans. What will you do as a cabinet secretary if you are approved to encourage more investors like those that are going to private facilities like Tattoo City to go to Konza Technopolis and other such investments in ICT hubs? How will you encourage and work with members of parliament in the establishment of digital hubs to be able to create online jobs for millions of our youth around the country?
Thank you.
That will be all for now.
Through the chair.
Yes, call me chairman or speaker.
Through the honorable speaker.
Yes.
I'll answer the question from Honorable Ichungo. Yes, as one of the Kenya Kwanza manifesto is coming up with the superhighway, the digital superhighway, that is expected to be 100,000 kilometers, and that is being done in collaboration with the private sector. And the question is how we leverage the private sector. And to start with, the design of the cable is 52,000 by the government of Kenya and 48,000 in collaboration with the private sector. So as a ministry or as a government, what we need to do is to create an enabling environment considering that this superhighway is inter-county, that is moving from one county to the other. So there's the issue of wayleave, is the issue of harmonization of policies from one part to the other. Again, we are saying that this superhighway is supposed to connect people up to the rural areas, and we are talking of 1,450 IHAB at the constituency level. And with that, what we need to do, and in collaboration with the government, is again ensuring sharing of resources and infrastructure. And sharing of infrastructure, what I mean by this is looking at who is laying fiber across the country. We know the private sector is doing that, the government is doing that, including government agencies like the Kenya Power, like the Kentraco, sorry. So is collecting all that effort into one, but then also to support at the constituency level. We are working with the members of parliament and the community to ensure that these innovation hubs that are being created, there is sustainability in it. And one of the challenges that we have had in the past is having iHub or digital hubs without clear definition of clear idea of how they'll be sustained. With the change of the CDF Act that allows up to 2% of the total allocation to be used for recurrent expenditure, that is again one of the areas where we will be working with the private sector to come up with innovative ideas of how, first of all, to make this iHub productive. We need to link the work all to bring the young people in these constituencies to work in this iHub or to access information, starting from business information, information from the government, and to be innovative.
CS nominee, what I was asking in that, how will you come in, if approved, to facilitate members of parliament, because they will do the infrastructure, they will do the recurrent expenditure in the ICT hubs. The gap has been where the ministry comes in terms of provision of equipment, the computers, adequate and relevant training for, and having trainers of trainers who will go to the ICT hubs to actualize that program very quickly. That's what I wanted to hear your input. And one more question I'd forgotten. You seem very strong on the ICT sector, but there's also the communication bit of your ministry and regulation of the fourth estate. And we have seen in this country some players within the fourth estate, and that's the media, engage in what I would term as highly unethical behavior. What will you do to ensure that either the self-regulation that is there is actualized and indeed the media industry self-regulates, or what interventions will you put in place to make sure that we don't have a media that is unethical, that is inciting the members of the public, relaying images on our televisions that people should not be watching with their families? Where will you come in there?
Thank you, Honorable Member. The question is where the ministry come in, and probably to say the ICT authority, which is a parastatal within the ministry, has been doing training across the country, and it is the one that second ICT staff to the ministries and the county level. So through the ministry, that is one of the areas where we will work with the county or members of parliament to provide the training, and with the 1450 constituencies and enabled by the technology.
1450 wards.
Yeah, 1450 wards and enabled by technology. That means for every county, we can have a contact person and we do the trainer. So this first bunch, then we will use them to train the other. And probably we'll use the model that we use for the African Union Commission, because the training I have been coordinating is focused on the 55 African Union member states, and we can have a class of representative from each of these countries. So again, we can do the same at the national level, where we organize webinars, reducing cost of movement and the like, and ensure that we are impacting knowledge and skilling the people, and the focus being for socio-economic development. Because one of the challenges we have had is we have expanded connectivity. Everyone has a device, everyone has access, but the issue is what are we doing with this connectivity? And it is after establishing what we need to do for socio-economic development and contextualized for that particular constituency, that's when then we can create wealth, we can create jobs, and we can ensure that our young generation are productively engaged.
Junet?
Answer the second bit on the for the state.
Yes, for the second question, Honorable Member, is that, as you said, there is a need for ethical behavior in the way we behave. There are norms and confidence-building measures of, that are guided by our constitutions that our national interest must be first. And the media is regulated by the Media Act that stipulates the code of conduct for the media practitioners and journalists. And enforcement of that is critical, and then accompanied by the Data Protection Act that clearly shows what is private, what is not private. The expectation is self-regulation and self-censorship. But in the event that this does not happen, there are complaint mechanisms through the Media Council of Kenya and through the Media Complaint Commission where this can be followed. But the approach I will take if approved by this committee is collaborative approach, that first of all we need to spread national cohesion agenda, that national interest comes first, that the media has a role in terms of crisis, and it should not be seen to be escalating. It should be seen to be creating peace, love, and unity as per our aspiration in the country.
Speaker, sir, I wanted to ask the nominee two issues. One is in this information age, and you know, Kenya remains vulnerable to computer misuse and cyber crimes. But Parliament had enacted Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, Cap 79C, and Data Protection Act 411C to prevent that risk associated with those. But despite that, despite Parliament enacting those laws, people still experience cyberbullying, exposure of protected personal data, misinformation, disinformation, incitement, hate speech online, and those kind of things. Propaganda, incitement to violence. So what will be your plan to address those challenges? What do you think you can, as a minister, what measures will you put in place to make sure those things are addressed? That's one. The second one is about the media. You know, Article 35 of the Constitution. 34, freedom of the media. Very clear that says freedom and independence of electronic, print, and all other types of media is guaranteed, but does not extend to any expression specified under Article 33, which is very clear. Hate speech, propaganda to war, incitement to violence, advocacy of hatred, such kind of things. And also, the most important one is in the exercise of the right to freedom of expression, every person shall respect the rights and reputation of others. But now, are you going to be the kind of man, how far is your belief in the freedom of media? Are you the kind of person when you get annoyed, you'll shut down the media and close them down, or break their equipment in the mountains? What is your view on that?
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Like when someone long time said, when you rattle a snake, if a snake is rattled, what will you do?
Thank you, the Honorable Member. I am a strong believer of the freedom of the media, being an information scientist, and also I believe that all the actors, while we have the media should be free, then it is their responsibility to be responsible and accountable. So there is a balancing act, and considering there are rules and regulations guided by the Constitution that defines our responsibilities, but then there are sectoral policies and regulation, starting with the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act that clearly stipulate what is considered a crime, when you are using digital technologies, and the enforcing mechanism to ensure that everybody is safe and allowed to experience their freedom in the digital space. Again, the other thing of consideration is that international laws recognize cyberspace, and it's guarded by the same laws. So basically, again, is to align ourselves with what is happening internationally, because cyber security, cyber crime, all these issues of cyber hygiene, they are of global nature, and it's not only our country that is having these challenges. It's a global challenge. So again, is to align ourselves with what is happening globally. Again, the Data Protection Act, which again aims at protecting personal data and privacy, and that's another policy that needs to be enabled or to be strengthened to address these kind of challenges. And the other thing we said, self-regulation or self-censorship or every person, and recognizing that in digital space you are dealing with masses. So it's about always the media following their code of conduct. Is it the right information? Is it factual? Have they checked the integrity of the information? So those are some of the self-regulations that we'll be pushing as a ministry to ensure that when we are exercising our rights as per the constitutions, we are abiding by the rules at the same time.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Dr. There's a place called Mulot in Bomet County. Mulot is where you have a group of young people who are extremely brilliant. They sometimes or occasionally misuse technology. They actually take money from your phone politely and have it deposited on their phones. Is there a way that, you know, as a ministry, you can tap into the knowledge of these many young people so that you have what we'll probably call ethical hackers? Sometimes you find government systems collapsing because of hacking, yet you have a group of so many young people, brilliant young people, who you can tap their knowledge on technology and have them earn meaningful salaries. What is your view on that?
Leader, I want to confirm what Nelson is saying. I'm a victim, and we are in court with a very brilliant young man. It is real. What Koecha said is real. I'm a victim.
Is the young man brilliant, or the opposite is you?
You know, Speaker, I'm just confirming the brilliant nature of the young generation we're having, and the CS as he takes up the docket. You are not just.
And I said that in jest.
Yes.
It's okay. It's okay.
She takes, if she is appointed by this committee, you are dealing with a young, vibrant generation, competent on IT.
Thank you. You have exhausted your right to ask another question. Yes. Naisula, let's take one or two, then you answer. If you ask short questions, we can take even 3 at a time.
I'm happy with 2.
2. Okay. So you have had Nelson with a rider from Honorable Mole. Now Naisula.
All right. I'll be direct because it's somehow been asked, because you've said the media has to be accountable and responsible. I want you to say it. What is being responsible and accountable? Because how do you plan to work with other government departments, ministries and agencies, including Parliament, to protect media freedom and secure public trust? The second question, revamping KBC. That has been a song every other day. And it's our national broadcaster. What are your thoughts about KBC and its current state and what it should be? The last one, yes, and I have to declare interest. I worked there for 7 years. Now, the government has also reported that since the beginning of the program on digital jobs, 390,000 youths have been trained, while the government has helped create 139,000 digital jobs for the youth. The problem, Madam Nominee, is that Kenyans have lost trust. You can't verify this information. You know, a leader just says, we've done this, we've done that. What will this ministry, or what will you do to ensure that this data can also be seen and be verified by Kenyans as you communicate your government or the current Kenya Kwanza achievements in a verifiable manner?
Nominee, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable members, for the question, and I'll start with the question from the Honorable Member Koech. The issue of young people being very competent, being savvy in technology and using it for the wrong things. And basically, technology was developed to address emerging challenges, but there are other things, the side effects of the technology. And yes, we have seen that we have very competent young people, and we are talking of creating centers of excellence where we can start software development. And the reason I'm saying this is that so far we have been focused on our entry-level skilling, but then we need to move a notch higher and start producing market leaders in software development, in software engineering, that can solve our challenges, but then also be the ethical hackers you mentioned. So that, first of all, our systems are going to be robust, but then also one of the challenges we are having is mass education on cyber hygiene, so that everybody understands their devices and also understand the interconnection of these devices from the device to the internet. What are the layers and what do they need to do? And that's another area that I find that these young people, we can make use of them to offer the training, and that will also be creating the jobs that the Kenya Kwanza government has promised the Kenyans. So in short is that we can harness these skills and ensure that we take advantage of these skills and enlarge to software development and engineering, and also use these young people to train user awareness, because as we move digital, everybody is affected, and we need to have a critical mass of people who are able to follow very clearly their digital prints and be sure of their security as they move along. Then to the Honorable Member Naisura, with regard to KBC, and yes, KBC is a public good that has very good resources that can be harnessed for the development of the country. Some of the suggestions I'll put forward is, first of all, looking at the business case for KBC, because what has happened is emerging technologies have come, and because agility in the public sector has not been able to move as fast as the private media houses. So one of the things I will suggest is relooking at the positioning of KBC, and in collaboration with other media houses, coming up with a partnership, leveraging on the huge infrastructure they have. Then it could be one of the ways of ensuring that they are sustainable. And also we have challenges, international, also moving into the digital space. We may need to ensure that they move with times and start incorporative technology in their activities. The other question you asked is on digital jobs and whether we are able to do monitoring and evaluation to ensure that we can speak to the numbers we say we are training. And I think this is where, again, we have to work in a collaborative approach from the national government to the county government, and through the connectivity we are talking about out to the ward level, then we are able to correct exact data of who is using this iHub and what they are using them for, because that is another information we need as a country to ensure that we are directing development to where the need is. So yes, I commit as a researcher and someone who is guided by figures. That is one of my priorities, just to find out who are these young people that we say we have trained, and what exactly are they doing with the training we have provided them, and are they using it for the socio-economic development of the country and also to improve on their livelihoods. And then, because one of the work or some of the focus we'd want to do is also to focus on international jobs, that the fact that we are connecting up to the world level we are connecting up to the marketplace. We are connecting up to the health facilities, up to local authorities. With all this connectivity, then what do people do with the internet? And this is an area that we now want to start focusing on content, and again, working with other government agencies like the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. They have a lot of statistics that can be used by innovators and these young people in the rural areas to start coming up with solutions that can address local challenges. Because basically when we talk about digital space or internet, it is an enabler. It's an enabler in health, in education, in agriculture, and we should use it for that. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Posing. Honorable Posing.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. To the nominee, what will you do with an animal called Universal Service Fund, which sits in CAK, Communication Authority of Kenya? That animal or that program was supposed to connect all, or put network in all rural places and constituencies and sub-locations. It has been there for a very long time. And this country, in the rural where we come from, are extremely unconnected.
What is it called, Posing?
Universal Service Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and yes, okay. So, Madam Nominee, this thing has been there for many years. Now you are coming, should you be appointed or agreed by Parliament and appointed, what will you do with that animal so that it does the purpose which it was supposed to do, that this country is connected, particularly in the rural areas? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vicaria.
Thank you, Chairman. Mine is a little bit connected with ICT and environment. The aspect of electronic waste. This country, we see a lot of refurbished electronic items coming, and of course, after the use of a proper electronic item, then it becomes a waste that affects the environment. The contraband, again, on electronics, again, is something that we also need to look at. What policy issue are you going to bring, whether between you and the Minister of Environment, to be able to assess the quality of the electronic that comes into the country, that they do not later affect the environment? Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, Nominee.
Thank
Can
you.
answer those two.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. To the question by Honorable David on Universal Service Fund. Yes, Universal Service Fund that have been in existence for a while, as you have mentioned, it has been used for rural connectivity, and probably just to say some of the areas it has been used is for the fiber optic cable that is being developed, the 100,000, some of the fund comes from the Universal Service Fund. The Universal Service Fund has also been used to connect rural schools and rural hospitals. And I know it can be more used, and probably my take for now is that there's still a lot that needs to be done with this Universal Service Fund, and considering the source of the fund is from the operators, and being from the operators, the usage again is limited to the operators that contribute to it. So one of the things that we may need to do is to expand the sources of income for the Universal Service Fund, and also the uses for which it is put into. And in addition, I would say, in addition to funding the operators, the commercial operators, the fund could also be used to fund community licensee, those persons that are focused on community for and not for profit.
I don't think if the nominee maybe understood me. The fund was supposed to build networks in rural areas. These networks are not there. So coming in, what will you do? Should you be lucky to be approved by this Parliament? What will you do?
Honorable Member, I will first get the facts clear of what areas this fund has been used for, and based on that, recommend that model, sustainable model that can be used to do this. And
No, Margaret, I thought you know, when you are not sure, even no is an answer.
yes, yes.
Because you embarked on a very active answer saying it has been doing extensions in rural schools, rural hospitals, fiber optic cables, and so on. Then when he destabilized you with another question, you appeared to move away completely from that. So did you know what it does, or you didn't know what it does?
I know what Universal Service Fund do.
Yes.
And I know it has done a lot of support in rural areas.
Yes.
And yes, when he said that, I will need now to find out the areas that this fund has not reached, because basically the whole idea is to connect the unconnected, is for rural connectivity, and it is through this fund that we expect to move to areas where the private sector has not seen it viable to invest. And again, considering that our population, about 60% of the population is rural areas, and that's where we need more connectivity. His question is, the honorable member's question is very valid, and we must ensure that rural people, if we are talking about connectivity, digital inclusion, then no one should be left behind. Yeah. Yeah, probably I could just say on Honorable Gikaria's comment on management of ICT waste or e-waste, which is becoming a challenge as well, that we are importing all, assembling all these ICT infrastructure, and we don't have a clear management system for managing the waste. So if this committee approves my nomination, and I must say in 2009, I was involved in development of a e-waste policy with NEMA that time. And I have not really followed the implementation since then, but this is an area that if approved by this committee, I look into to ensure that we have clear policies of what we are bringing in the country, what is the lifeline of the infrastructure we are bringing. Then the other issue is about green energy. Are we bringing devices that are harmful in the long run? So basically it's working with all the stakeholders to ensure, first of all, we have an enabling environment, then also to ensure that our procurement policies are very clear on the lifeline of the devices that we are bringing into the country, then also developing policies for recycling of ICT or e-waste products.
Mary?
Chairman, I'm going to ask one question.
Please do.
And it has been sent to me by my constituent, who is an IT expert. Kenya Kwanza Manifesto is succinct and intentional on creative economy and digital transformation. As you may be aware, the vast majority of the world's advanced microchips are made in just two countries, Taiwan and South Korea. Taiwan's industry is large and dominant. South Korea is keen on challenging that through a robust investment of over $200 million. Further, Kenyan population is young, dynamic, and IT savvy, meaning that we only need priming and retooling them appropriately given workable and practical policies. His questions are these. 1, what is your understanding of fourth industrial revolution? How can Kenya leverage on AI and fourth industrial revolution, keeping in mind that the key driver is robust semiconductor industry? 2, what is your position on government's youth internship program and practical training on machine learning, artificial intelligence, and cutting-edge technologies, which I believe our country desperately needs? Those are his questions. Thank you.
Yes, Dawood, let's take the next one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To Dr. Nyambura. Kenya has a highly talented youth engaged in diverse creative works. The digital revolution supported by Kenya's strong internet connectivity has opened up opportunities for this sector. to become a significant economic contributor. What specific plans do you have to nurture these talents and ensure that individuals in the creative economy can turn their talents into successful businesses for their own benefit and the benefit of the country? Because in my constituency, I've got 4 Ajira centers, which are working very well. But are you going to continue the same into digital hubs, what the president has promised? Secondly, 2013, the Jubilee government, the Jubilee government introduced laptops in primary schools. After that, we've never heard of where those laptops are or what has happened to those tablets. They were called tablets. But nothing has happened to date. Are you, if you are confirmed, will you reintroduce computer literacy in primary schools like what it was envisaged in the Jubilee government of 2013?
Yes, nominee.
Thank you, Honorable Member Mary, for the question on the 4th Industrial Revolution and what we are doing to promote manufacturing of electronic devices, electronics, and then also the issue of youth and training in machine learning on making use of the emerging technologies, if I got the question well. To begin with the issue of creative economy, is that Konza, which is one of the flagship projects of 2030, and actually is still one of the projects that Kenya Kwanza government is focused on. One of the plans that need, one of the strategic plan is to establish a software engineering center, but then also there are universities, there are 2 universities that are going to be set in Kwanza. There is an Open University, and there is also a university that is allied to Korea Institute of Advanced Technology, and that is the Kenya Institute of Advanced Technology. And I think it's good that Korea is spearheading this, and we are partnering with them in the Kwanza project. So that is an area that the Kenya Kwanza government will focus on to ensure that, again, we are not just focused on entry-level work for our young people. We need to move them a step higher to start being the one who are informing emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, feeding the right data, because, again, artificial intelligence depends on data into the system. And we don't want a situation where, because as a country we are not participating in populating the digital space with data of integrity, then whatever comes of artificial intelligence is biased towards the data that is there. So this is an area that I will focus on. We will focus on advanced technology to ensure that we are selling. We are the Silicon Valley of Africa, so we are selling our technologies. We are starting innovation hubs where the private sector, academia, the public sector can come together and to collaborate on coming up with the best innovation that will solve our day-to-day challenges. Coming to the question by Honorable Daudi about the work of Ajira, that the creative economy is about using technology and leveraging on what we already have. The answer is that the work of Ajira will continue, because is connectivity using different business models, but then also looking at sustainability. And the focus, again, for all these rural connectivity, ensuring we have gadgets at the household level, should be harnessed towards socio-economic development. And again, our challenge is the youth. We are channeling about 800,000 to 1 million young people to the market every year, but we're not able to provide them with jobs. And starting with the iHub, Ajira, that's where we start now being innovative. And again, releasing government data, private sector data, and in a format that is usable. That's the only way then we are able to come up with solutions that can solve our local challenges and come up with our local solutions, not just for our country, because again, when you are talking about digital jobs, transformation, we should not just be talking about solving our own challenges, but then continental challenges, global challenges, and taking advantage of our skilled young people who are innovative, who are ready to move. I think they just need to be guided with the right policies, right regulations, right collaborations, and then the right ethics and social norms, because again, these are, if we are opening ourselves to global market, then we must align to international standards. We must, again, know the expectation of the clients. So basically, yes, it's preparing our youth for that. Again, the next question by Honorable Daudi with regard to the laptop in primary school, which was a great initiative, still a very great initiative considering the CBC curriculum. And just to give an update, in 2016, laptops were given to 1.2 laptops were given to the public primary schools across the country. And at that point, there were about 22,900 primary schools. And
I say something, but you know that most schools don't have electricity, so they can't even charge them. And a kid from Olympic Primary School who has to go to the bottom of Kibra, I mean, how will they carry it? So they can't take it home. The school, they can't charge it. So I don't know why you think it's viable, unless you have a way you'll make it viable.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Yes, I think there is no option. We have to make it workable because of the reason why we have the
Margaret, you are being asked questions that would elicit your vision, not to explain as if you are the minister. You see the difference?
Yes.
He says there were meant to be computer labs, there were, school laptops, they were downgraded to tablets, and then he said they disappeared. Now, you are a nominee for this ministry, seeking to be confirmed. Don't defend what you didn't participate in or what you didn't know. Explain, if you get the opportunity, what you will do.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for that clarity. Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yes. If this committee appoints my nomination, what I will do is to ensure that in every school, and I'll work with the relevant stakeholders, that will be part of my vision, to ensure that we have an inclusive, safe, and secure Kenyan population. And to do this, I'll work with my counterpart in other ministries, first of all, to ensure that sustainability, because I think what we lacked in our DLP project is inbuilt sustainability. That once the computers were taken to the schools, how are they going to be maintained? How are we going to train the teachers? How are we going to make sure that there's continuous learning? How are we going to make sure that there is electricity? As Deputy Speaker said, of the schools, there were schools that didn't have electricity and they used alternative technology, which again, they didn't look at a sustainability model. So if this committee approves my nomination, I'll work with the relevant ministries, relevant agencies to do another survey to understand what is the situation in all these schools and how best can we ensure that all the schools, all the public schools, they have digital devices, and not only do they have digital devices, that they are using them, because also there is a situation where they have the devices, but they are not using, simply because, again, the skilling is a challenge. Another area that I would want to focus on is leveraging on, on local skills. That one of the challenge again of the DLP is the fact that there was no decentralized training of train the trainers or the teachers, so that there's probably a pool of trainers that will go to the schools. So again, collaboratively, I'll work with all the stakeholders to ensure that we have sustainability in the project.
Murugara. Honorable George Gitonga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, mine is extremely brief and just from where she has stopped. If you succeed in getting approved by the House as the CSICT, would it be your position that you would actually try to make your ministry a rural ministry. Because as we speak today, it's almost urban, 90% urban. Because in rural areas, we do not have electricity, which is the key driver of ICT. Would you actually support, even as members of parliament from rural constituencies, where the electricity connectivity is extremely low, that all schools, primary and secondary schools, should be connected to the national grid and not solar, because solar doesn't even work for 2-3 months, it's gone. National grid, we are supplied with electricity in those schools so that we are able to move forward your ministry.
Thank you, Honorable Member of Parliament. Yes, you have said that whether if I'm approved, I'll commit to ensure that the rural population is included in the digital space. Yes, I commit to that, and to say I'm a member of the Policy Network of Meaningful Access, that is a UN network that is working to ensure that we are not leaving the rural people behind. The whole idea being that going digital, then we cannot leave half of the population in the rural areas. And if approved by this, if confirmed by this committee, I'll work with the relevant agencies to ensure that every rural school, and probably to support that with my experience, my primary education, I went to a school called Kendurum Primary School. They have a computer, they are not using it because they don't have the structure to use it. My secondary school was Olenguroni Secondary School. Until I finished, I think they just got electricity not many years ago. And the competition was not just between Olenguroni, it was global. And considering that, I wouldn't, it will be in my interest to ensure every person in rural areas has the same opportunity as someone in the urban area. And this can only happen if there is inclusive connectivity up to the ward level.
Owen. Honorable Speaker, I want to ask this question on behalf of all other people who have not asked. Because I think the information that is coming out from the nominee is just the same thing. So I'm sure she will answer all these questions the same way. So on behalf of all the others, Honorable Speaker, you know, Kenya, the President's vision and flagship project, ICT hubs, ICT jobs, digital space, and more young people getting jobs there. We have moved to a certain level already. We have a base. How will you take this further as you come in? Your predecessor did some good job. How do you take it further, be above what there is, so that the President's vision can be realized within this term? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Robert, he said he's asking on behalf of all of you.
Mine is slightly different, Mr. Speaker. And it's about dependence on IT, because we are noticing this happening all over the world. Recently, I think July 19th, there's a company called CrowdStrike, one of the top cyber security firms that caused a major global IT outage when they were trying to upgrade the software on Microsoft. And this has cost, like one airline, I think Delta, over $500 million in cases. Now, I'm asking this because in Kenya, all government services are paid into e-citizen. In fact, recently there was an attempt to have even school fees paid through e-citizen. And e-citizen, I understand, is in the hands of a private entrepreneur. So my question is, what is your view on this? And would you recommend building capacity when you come into this ministry so that we can have maybe a team of public servants or staff that belong to us, that are paid by taxpayers, that can be able to be trained and take complete control of that kind of facility? Thank you, Chairman.
Can you answer those two?
Thank you, Honorable Members of Parliament. The first question is what I will do different from my predecessors. And yes, because the issues they have been working on, they are critical. They are critical.
Yes.
Connectivity is critical. Devices is critical. Capacity building is critical. So I will continue with that. But what I will do when it comes to capacity building, I'll move a notch higher to specialized training in software development, software engineering, and working with the CONSA, the university that is being set there, and focused on offering training, master's, doctorate level on engineering, the various facets of engineering. I think that is where we will move into, so that we are churning out competent people who can work on the system. The other thing I'll also work on is in terms of content, that we are connected, we have the system, now we need to develop content and to develop solutions, innovations using the data we have. So that is, again, what I will do. Yes, going to the e-citizen. The question is whether we are safe to have all our data under e-citizen, and then also what we are going to do in terms of building capacity to manage the government systems and the like. Yeah, when it comes to e-citizen, is a good system, one-stop government solution for all applications and the like. That I think to ensure that sustainability, or to ensure that we have a backup. We have information in one central place that is very well secured in terms of physical infrastructure.
He said,
Yeah.
we asked you that there's a platform called e-citizen through which payments are being made to government, including now a proposal to pay school fees through that platform, which he alleges is a private enterprise. So he wanted to know, if you become the minister, how will you ensure protection of public interest if it is a private enterprise? Wasn't that your question, Robert?
Yes, with that, Honorable Speaker, without sufficient information, it may be challenging to answer, but
That issue has been like that for the last 10 years, and most likely this government will leave it the same way. So,
if you get there, look at it. Russell?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Dr. Margaret, I'm looking at medium-term plan 2023-2027, where the government plans to have startups and also attract investment from multinational technology companies. But at the same time, the government also is saying, let us establish in the wards what you call ICT hubs. But my question is, if you are going to attract international investors, and at the same time is startups, why don't you incentivize young men and women to actually come up with those ICT hubs, whether they have 5 computers, 10 computers, so that basically it generates employment, and also it is able to invigorate that local economy, as opposed to government promising something that might take quite some time to establish. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. That is an advice and not a question. Take it in the stride. Thank you, Russell. Or Margaret, you want to comment on that? It's very good advice from the Honorable.
No, I think with that information, I will review and act accordingly.
Thank you. Sharia?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm okay to ask the question. For mine, it's a very simple question, Daktari. if approved for appointment, what key results or deliverables can Kenyans expect from your office in the short and medium term? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Sharia. Mishi.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Chairman, our nominees seem to have vast knowledge in terms of ICT. My question is, what do you understand by Internet Governance Forum? And how do you want to place Kenya in the continental space in matters pertaining to internet coverage and management? How is our country benefited from this IGF? And when you are talking about connectivity and you say that you're going to ensure that even our rural folk are going to be connected, I just want to understand what level of connectivity is there right now as a country, because I'm looking on those days when we had COVID and we had to go virtual in terms of our committee meetings, and maybe a way forward we need to go e-parliament. So what mechanism or measure are you going to put in place to ensure that you fast track this issue of connectivity, so that even our electorates can understand what is happening in our chambers in regarding to debate of motions and bills, also in our committee rooms, so that they can appreciate that we are really working on our cardinal roles in terms of legislation, oversight, and representation. I think this is an area where you need to put more emphasis and come up with measures, unique approaches, so that we realize this. Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Sergeant. Can you check whose phone is that ringing continuously? It's out of order. Margaret, nominee, can you proceed to answer those two?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'll start answering the question by
it's you.
Honorable Bichi before I go to the question of my key results. What is Internet Governance Forums? Internet Governance Forums, they are meetings, let me say they are meetings that aims at governance issues when it comes to Internet, realizing that Internet is a global resource that affects countries, individuals in different ways, and there is a need to manage. And this, the origin of Internet governance is from the World Summit on Information Society, when member states globally came together and realized they need to come up with a way of managing Internet as a public resource. And the structure of Internet Governance Forum is that looking at national issues of connectivity, looking at infrastructure, ICT for development, the culture, education, all issues to do with ICT and how it is being used at the national level, and trying to see how can, what are the cross-cutting issues? Like the issue of access has been cross-cutting across the country and across the globe. So again, these issues are taken at the regional level, where again, different countries come to discuss what are the challenges, what are the cross-cutting issues at the national level, so they come at the regional level. And from the regional level, again, you take the cross-cutting issues, which will probably be cross-data movement, harmonization of policies, and that is taken to the continental level, where again, the African Union comes up with a common position that is presented at the global IGF as the challenges across the continent. Kenya has a very strong internet governance process, actually the national one. These are held every year. The national one was held yesterday and it has been very successful. And probably to say Internet Governance Forums is a collaboration approach between the private sector, academia, civil society, recognizing that internet is a good that affects every stakeholder and every person. So, yeah, so that is answered. The next question you answered in terms of connectivity and fast-tracking connectivity across the country. And yes, that is one of my key results areas that if approved by this committee, we'll start baseline analysis to understand where are the gaps and what do we need to do? What options do we have? Who are the collaborators? What is the private sector doing? How can we use the Universal Service Fund? What can we, private sector, like new technologies, visas, very expensive, but in some cases they have been seen to work. So is looking at the environment as we have it today and coming up with the best way forward. So again, I link this to my key results because that would be one of my focus, ensuring that there is connectivity and access. My other key result will be working on the African Union Convention on Cybersecurity and Data Protection ratification. And probably just to say something about this convention, it was developed in 2014 and it needed 15 African member states to be ratified. And it was only ratified last year in June after the 15th country ratified, and Kenya is not one of the countries that has ratified, which is a very important convention to govern our work and to ensure that we can collaborate with our neighboring countries when it comes to issues of cybersecurity. My third key results will be implementation of the National Master Plan. As I said, I was one of the advisors of the ministry in developing the National Digital Master Plan, which means the issues in that master plan, I aligned with them, issues of infrastructure, capacity building, support of digital platforms, and innovation and tech. So I will progress implementation of that master plan. Then creation of green national data centers. Again, we are talking of using renewable energy, and this also will address the issue of e-waste, so that as we are getting more devices, as we are moving more digital, then we are also able to deal with issues of zero energy transmission and renewable energy. And the final one is the issue of affordability, that as we stand, there are households, there are people who use more than 30% of their disposable income on connectivity, on devices, and that is because they want to be in the digital space. So the issues of affordability up to the rural person, up to the person, the mama mboga, has to be addressed so that every person can access the digital space and be able to be there and do their socio-economic activities.
Mukami.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Nominee, what personal accountability measures will you adopt to ensure that information technology is used to combat corruption within the entire government?
Amisi.
Speaker, I just have a question.
A question is a question. If you have none,
yes. Now,
you can pass.
Madam Nominee, the artificial intelligence is a technological advancement that is almost mimicking structure and function of a human being. And of course, it has now taken all the facets of our life. Universities are struggling with it, business environment. How do you regulate technology advancement and the use of technology without infringing the other basic rights of a human being, the freedom of speech and all that? Most of our cyber laws that we've passed, they have always hit a snag because of infringement to other laws of human rights that exist. So how do you regulate without infringing on other rights of human being?
Nominee.
Thank you, honorable members, for the question. The first one is to use ICT to combat corruption in government. ICT is an enabler, and it facilitates the work of the government, and putting measures, transparency, integrity in system, ensuring that the system we have are up to date, they cannot be penetrated by the young, innovative people. Then we'll be able to ensure that what we feed into the system is what we get from the system. And therefore, ICT will ensure that we enforce what we do offline. So corruption has to be done away from the manual part of it. Then the ICT will ensure that we have integrity in systems to protect our data. The question with regard...
Madam Nominee, do you think you can implement e-procurement in the government during your time? as a CS, if you are approved by the...
Thank you, Honorable Member, for that. With your permission, Honorable Speaker, I would want, first of all, to explore so that I don't commit and I don't know what are the underlying opportunities or challenges in e-procurement.
Thank you. That's a good answer. Have you finished?
Yes.
AI?
Yeah, there's one question on artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And probably to say when it comes to emerging technologies, for us to regulate, because emerging technologies cuts across jurisdictions. And therefore, while as a country, we can come up with the policies and guidelines to govern the artificial intelligence, development of artificial intelligence, we need collaboration with other countries. And probably to say the African Union just developed a continental strategy on artificial intelligence that again guides the continent on how to approach issues of artificial intelligence. And if approved by this committee, I will now critically look at what is in that artificial intelligence strategy and see what we can adopt as a country to ensure that we progressively move forward.
Thank you, Margaret. I will now ask you a few questions. Have you ever been adversely mentioned in any integrity-related report or investigations in your life?
No.
Do you hold any leadership position in any political party within Kenya?
No.
How much is your net worth?
My net worth is 90. Sorry. My net worth is 95,323,000. 95 million.
Okay. Made out of?
Movable assets, 5.5 million. Immovable assets, 54 million.
Hold on, Margaret. Page 12. Go on.
Immovable assets, 54 million. Treasury bills and bonds, 25.6.
Movable assets, you mean cars?
Yeah, movable assets. Yeah, I have one car.
Yes.
I have immovable assets. That is house, land, yeah, mainly. I have SACCO shares, 1 million. I have treasury bills, 25.6 million. I have cash and cash equivalent of about 11.5 million.
Good. We leave it there. And thank you for your appearance.
Thank you,
The
Honorable.
committee will make its findings on both you and others that have appeared before us. So we wish you well.
Thank you.
You may take your documents. Go ahead.
Thank you, and I want to sincerely thank the President of the Republic of Kenya and all the people of Kenya for the confidence in my ability to drive the accelerated implementation of Kenya's digital transformation agenda. And I want to assure this honorable committee that I am fully aware of the enormous responsibility put on me. And upon your approval, I am confident that I will lead the sector in the best way
Not
possible.
upon our approval, if approved.
If approved.
Yes.
And Honorable Speaker, sir, I thank this vetting committee and Kenyans at large for listening to me and the support.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We may now release you.
Thank you.
Sergeant, you can show the nominee the way.
Same time, 7:30. See, today we did better.
Yes.
We started early and went for shorter breaks.
Yes. Today we finish what time? Same time.
Same time, no, I think it was 8.
Yes. Yesterday we finished at 8, so you have done a little better.
15 minutes.
No, 7.
But we started
Hakuna.
later, yes.
Order, we'll discuss that in a short while. Our friends from the media, you may take your leave. Omwami, was there lunch? Yes, it was fine. You are satisfied? Very good.